Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about What If Naruto X Orihime Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. For years the nations have been fighting Madara, Kabuto, and their army of the undead and white Zetsus. Many lives were lost in the battle and new leaders were picked to lead the nations. In Iwabikure, Onoki no longer lived due to the battle of rushing rivers just on the edge of Akatsuki's base. Kitsuchi, the father of Kuratsuchi, was elected to be the Yondaime Tsuchikage. The loss of their Sandaime greatly decreased the battle morale of the ninjas from IWA. The Yondaime Reikage remained in office, as did Meitorimi, the Godaime Mizukage. Gaara also remained the leader of Suna and the commander of the allied forces. Unfortunately, Tsunade fell into another deep coma 8 months ago, after her fight with her lost love Dan. The Rokudaime Hokage is Naruto, who had amazingly rose through the ranks after returning from his training trip with Jiraiya. This blonde was so much different than the blonde before he was properly trained. He was calmer and more analytical. He had to be with the amount of people hunting him. He excelled in all fields excluding Iryujutsu, which was the medicine category. Like his father, he excelled in Fuinjutsu, and thanks to his newfound and total control over the Kyuubi's chakra, he learned high-level Genjutsu. He was much taller, reaching 6 feet, 4 inches, and his hair reached his shoulders. He wore a dark green muscle shirt, with onyx armor. A breastplate across his chest, with a piece of it continuing to his right shoulder. Onyx vambraces adored each of his forearms. Onyx leg guards over his black pants and black metal-bottomed boots. On his left hip was his kodachi, forged by one of the best blacksmiths in Iron Country, and he was taught by his Kenjutsu sensei, who was very old and now is deceased. It was his prized possession. Its sheath was plain black and had a shuriken-like guard that was dark silver in color. The handle was wrapped in black and silver cloth in the design of diamonds, with a diamond on the flat tip of the silver handle. The blade itself was longer than an average kodachi blade. Also, if you looked at the blade close enough, you could see a light purple wave design. Over his entire attire was a black cloak with crimson flames licking the bottom, just like his father's cloak. On the back was a couple of kanji that read Kitsune Swayman, meaning sleeping fox. He was given that name because outside of battle he could be extremely playful, but when threatened he becomes as fierce as the kitsune that was once sealed inside of him. While it was hard to believe that he was only 18. And speaking of 18, the blonde was in a clearing facing another 18-year-old. His all-time rival and once best friend Uchiha Sasuke, a raven-haired boy who also grew in power over the years. He stood at 6 feet, 2 inches, and also excelled in many fields, minus medical, and he only had enough knowledge in sealing to create a couple of seals. He wore a black muscle and black pants. Over that he had his own armor, a shoulder plate connected to his breastplate, similar to Naruto's in style and durability. He didn't wear any leg guards since he wanted more speed. Over his attire was his custom Akatsuki robe, with his white collar sticking out over the top. Throughout his life, he had only one goal, and that was to kill his brother, Uchiha Itachi. Now, after achieving that goal, he learned the truth about his brother and the truth behind the massacre of his clan. After learning of this, he obtained another goal to reach, the destruction of his home village, Konoha. By living in darkness for so long he was subjected to harsh realities. He came to the conclusion that the entire village killed his brother and clan. But through all the hate the village had for the Uchiha clan, Itachi could never kill his little brother, and thus he remained standing tall. But there was a variable in that equation, and that was the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Madara. After receiving the eyes of his brother and obtaining the eternal Manjiki Sharingan, his Sharingan changed. With that change, came the change in his outlook of the world and the series of events that brought him to this field. Do you see, Sasuke, we're so much alike, not because of how we grew up, but because of the man that ruined our very lives. Naruto yelled at his rival, glaring at him. The Uchiha returned the glare. No, Dobe, you're wrong. He ruined your life, by releasing the fox from your mother and having it wreak havoc on the village, where your own father sealed it inside of you. He said, making the blonde flex his fist in anger, as it was a habit whenever he was angry. Be that as it may, when the villagers turned on the Uchiha clan, knowing that with the Sharingan's mind-manipulating capabilities any powerful Uchiha could take control of the beast, Madara used that to his advantage and put seeds of hatred in the Uchiha's minds, making them hate the village and wish to take control, and we all know how that turned out. Sasuke's obsidian eyes changed to his eternal Manjiki Sharingan, making Naruto's own cerulean blue eyes to turn red with a vertical slit. Sasuke's Sharingan was now a 5-pointed pagan star, totally disregarding the theory of a fusion of two different Manjiki Sharingans like Madara's was after he took his brother's own eyes. It was truly an intimidating sight, but so was Naruto's own eyes, as they held the coldness that he was known for on the battlefield. So now it seems we each have someone to kill to achieve our vengeance, the Rokudame said, smirking, just as Sasuke began to smirk himself. A minute later they heard shouts, and a split second later, dozens of shinobi troops landed all around the duo. Hokage-sama, should we kill this cur now or imprison him for life? Asked one of the many ANBU behind Naruto. The blonde shook his head, while Sasuke remained calm, knowing he was strong enough to escape after fighting the shinobi forces. No, I need him alive. He and I have a common enemy. Enemies. Naruto looked at Sasuke in confusion. Enemies? Yes, not only Madara but also Kabuto, the one controlling the Edo Tensei. They are the real problem your troops have been having in this war, but he himself is rather insignificant compared to Orochimaru's. Sasuke explained, smirking to himself. He's just a cheap copy. Everybody smirked at the comment and Naruto himself scoffed. You must not forget about the man's regenerative abilities. That alone makes him a worthy opponent. Now add on the amount of power he gained from Orochimaru, and you have yourself a strong bastard, the Hokage said. Soon after the immortal duo chuckled, a group of Jounin appeared next to Naruto. Hokage-sama, Madara was spotted in front of Commander Gaara and proceeded to fight the entire army, alone. Hearing this, the two rivals glanced at each other, and nodded and promptly vanished. Base of the commander equals. Screams of agony and the sizzling of burned bodies welcomed Naruto and Sasuke when they arrived at the base. It took them at least 10 minutes to get there, so they were surprised to see so many dead troops. But considering who did the deed, they shouldn't have been surprised. And speaking of the devil, they noticed the crowd was around the man, who was quickly appearing and killing somebody before letting someone's counterattack phase through him before he killed that guy and disappeared to kill somebody else. Having an idea, all of the shinobi forces attacked at the same time, and was immediately pushed back, courtesy of Madara's Shinra Tensei. The blonde looked at Sasuke with a look of surprise on his face. He has the Rinnegan. When the hell that happened? I thought I don't know what to think now, he said, shaking his head. Sasuke also looked surprised, except he knew little to nothing about the Rinnegan. Don't look at me that way, this is news to me as well. I never knew he had something like that. My eyes just healed a couple days ago. He most likely got it while I had the cloth over my eyes, to heal from the treatment. Well, why are we just standing here, doing nothing? Let's kick his ass. They smirked at each other and rocketed towards the group. Meanwhile, after watching his troops get pushed away, Gaara willed his sand to surround Madara and converge on his position. Instead of just having the sand phase through him, the old man just had his body surrounded by Amaterasu flames, instantly crystallizing the sand, and he quickly vanished and reappeared in front of the Kazekage and swung his bladed fan at his neck. A quick slice later and Gaara's head was off. And that was the death of the commander of the shinobi forces and Godame Kazekage. That would have been the case if the body hadn't exploded in a shower of sand, cutting into the surprised Uchiha's body. The man didn't have time to worry about the sand as a spear was headed right towards his head. He held his fan up and swung, causing the spear to go off course, just a little, and barely missed his head. That was close, he thought. After the swing he started to sink a little and glanced at the ground to see that it had turned to quicksand. His eyes could see that it wasn't a genjutsu, so he thrust his hand down and Shinra Tensei'd the ground and jumped to escape the blown-up sand from surrounding him. After landing he ducked a strike from an extremely dense sand punch. More came and he just let them phase through him as he rushed the Kazekage. He tossed his fan to the floor and begun throwing a series of punches and kicks at the Kazekage. Gaara just let his sand block the ones that he couldn't dodge himself. The sequence of punches began to get faster, and he knew that the man was getting frustrated and substituted himself with a dense block of sand. He appeared a couple of meters away from the Uchiha, and was quickly joined by Naruto and Sasuke. About time you decided to join me, Naruto. And I see you finally decided to join our side, Sasuke. I knew at some point you would. The raven-haired teen scoffed. Please just let us handle things now. I agree with team on this one, Gaara. You're nearly out of chakra, go rest. Join us when you're finished. This is going to be a long battle. Here, take my sword, I won't be using it. I'm going full power, and a weapon by my side would only get in the way, he said, handing his best friend his weapon. The Kazekage nodded and his body dissolved into sand and let the wind him away to safety. That was awesome. The blonde turned to his rival. Yeah, it doesn't matter how many times I see that, it just gets better and better, he replied, facing Madara while taking his cloak off and sealing it, not wanting it to get damaged. Sasuke followed suit, not wanting his stuff to get damaged. Wow, you two really came ready for a fight. the man said. It's a shame really, you two are strong, but now I have to kill a traitor and seal a demon. A pity really, I had plans for you, Sasuke, he said, vanishing. After vanishing, the elder Uchiha appeared in the air just a couple of meters above Sasuke. Katan, Dai Enden. A fireball smaller than a Gakayu was spewed out of the man's mouth, and it collided with Sasuke. A small explosion kicked up some dust, and some of the wind fed the flames and had it continue to prevent view of Sasuke. The Uchiha then went after Naruto. The blonde dodged Murata's punch and kicked him away and quickly clapped his hands, focusing chakra through them. Futon de Tapa, he said, cupping his hands in front of his mouth, and quickly blew a strong gust of wind that blew out the flames and smoke. A small sigh of relief left Naruto's lips as he witnessed a large and fiery rib cage in front of Sasuke. Other than that, Sasuke was without a scorch mark, the ribs diminished, and Sasuke walked next to Naruto. That was a close one, the raven-haired teen whispered. Madara, not used to such speed, cursed himself underneath his breath. He should have easily been able to phase through that kick. Feeling immense power, he looked up at the two. Naruto was charging his demonic cloak with kitsune bones resting at the top. He also had what looked like 6 tails behind him. Looking closer, he could see that his pupils had changed. Instead of the single vertical slit, it had a horizontal slit added to the mix. What the fuck is up with his eyes? He mumbled under his breath as more power was released. This time he looked at Sasuke. The raven-haired teen was leaking energy darker than his own. One would think without Orochimaru's soul in the curse seal it would be useless and vanish. But no, it wasn't gone with Sasuke, and he didn't know why. Sasuke groaned as his power increased. A week before now he found and killed Jugo and experimented on his body. Now he was the holder of the very last curse seal. With the amount of cursed enzymes he inserted into his body, his curse seal leveled up, so to speak. Meet Sasuke's 3rd level of his seal. His hair was long and dark gray with a hint of violet. His ears grew long and pointy. His eyes were activated with his own eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, but if he didn't have it activated, his eyes would be amber-colored. His lips were touched with a hint of violet. His body was similar to his 2nd level. Nothing really changed about him. His strength increased more drastically, as did his speed and chakra capacity. A second after, the fiery rib cage from before returned and began forming the rest of the body, and then the muscles appeared, and soon the armor came, and what stood before Madara was Susanoo, the god of storms and seas. Sasuke's Susanoo was different than his brothers. Instead of the sword, his wielded a bow and arrow. Speaking of bow and arrows, the god knocked one and quickly fired at Madara. The elder quickly jumped out of the way, knowing that a Shinra Tensei wouldn't do a damn thing, and phasing through was completely impossible, because of the special properties of the spectral arrow. While in the air, he turned and barely spotted Naruto flying right at him. He, as quickly as he could, disappeared into a separate dimension and reappeared on the ground, only to repeat the process multiple times as fireballs came at him from all directions. He appeared right in front of the 6-tailed Naruto and held out his hands. Shinra Tensei. He pushed Naruto straight into the ground. He glanced to his side to see Sasuke's Susanoo notching another arrow. Banzou Tenin, he muttered. Naruto's body hit the ground and bounced, but instead of hitting the ground again, it continued to rise. A strong pulling sensation lifted him in the air, right in the path of the arrow, as Madara dropped to the ground. He glanced to the side to see the arrow coming right at him, and with not enough time to slow it down, he quickly charged his chakra and released a beam of energy, and began drifting in the air just enough for the arrow to miss him and fly into the clouds. Naruto heaved a huge sigh of relief and used a shunshin and appeared on the ground next to Sasuke. Watch where you're shooting that thing, team. What would have happened if I would have gotten hit? He asked, glaring at the teen, as his chakra tails swished behind him angrily. All Sasuke did was shrug his shoulders. Something awesome would have happened though, he thought to himself. Calm your ass down, you found a way to get out of the way, just be glad you didn't get hit. He yelled at the Hokage. Suddenly Susanoo was covered in black fire. Naruto looked and saw Madara shake his head a little at using Amaterasu, after the amount of chakra was used. Because Naruto's Yuki was so potent and dangerous, even his weakest techniques pack a lot more punch than usual. And his higher techniques become even more destructive and could ultimately destroy the entire landscape. Oh well, who cares? The blonde crouched low to the floor on all fours and charged up chakra. Meanwhile, Sasuke ended his Susanoo and vanished only to reappear in front of Madara, and they engaged in a taijutsu fight. With Sasuke's superior speed, he was firing more punches, but with Madara's superior evasiveness, he was dodging most of the punches. With his latest dodge, he sent a kick, hitting the teen's side and sent him skidding along the ground. Sasuke reappeared next to his elder and sent a punch which broke off a small part of the mask. Now it was Madara's turn to skid along the ground. Doton Doria Heki, the man said, causing a wall to rise just under him and sent him into the air, enough for him to flip and land on his feet on top of the wall. Back with Naruto, he just ate a black ball of very condensed chakra. Ugh, this tastes nasty. How come it couldn't taste like ramen? He thought. Genshin Reza, atomic laser, he fired his tainted beam of Yuki at Madara. The elder Uchiha's danger sense went off a little too late as he turned around, just in time to get hit with the beam. He was sent miles away, traveling with the beam as it a quarter-mile wide gouge in the ground. Madara's Rinnegan was radiating energy as he pushed the beam as much as he could while traveling with it. That was the only thing keeping him from roasting. He took a breath and vanished to another dimension. Sasuke felt Madara's energy fade and returned behind Naruto. The young Uchiha quickly unsheathed his blade and vanished just in time to prevent Naruto from being punched by cutting Madara's right forearm off. A scream echoed through the valley as Madara clutched his bloody stub. His mask was destroyed and his left Rinnegan eye was extremely damaged. Blood was oozing from it, and it trailed down the Uchiha's face, having overused it. Another technique from that eye and it'll surely be destroyed. The elder glared at them. Futon, Renkuden, he suddenly blasted Sasuke into Naruto. They quickly got up and dashed at the injured Madara. Naruto went for a slash with his claws and the man barely dodged it. A second later Sasuke went for a slash and Madara also dodged that, but was surprised when a giant claw made of Yuki grabbed him. The demonic blonde quickly lifted the man and just as quickly slammed him to the ground. He brought the man towards him, while poising his 6 tails and swiftly struck out. He was surprised when his tails phased through. What? He shouldn't have been able to phase through that. I went top speed through this entire combo, he thought angrily. The blonde's thoughts were interrupted when Madara appeared in front of him and hurriedly spewed a fireball in his face. A roar of anger was heard as Sasuke came and kicked Madara in the chin and jumped in the air, using his wings to fly. He charged a Chidori in his hand and fired multiple lightning senbons at Madara. Out of the 100 of senbons fired, only about 30 hit. With part of his body paralyzed, the elder was left to Sasuke's flurry of punches. It ended with a kick in the chest that launched him to the ground. But it wasn't the end as Sasuke charged another Chidori in his hand and yelled, "Chidori Aisu." He thrust his fist at Madara and fired a large spear of lightning at the man. Naruto, after roaring in anger, grew another, more potent tail, making 7. He used his tails to grab and tightly squeezed Madara and kept him from escaping this dimension when he was being bombarded by the Saban, and that is why only 30 hit. Madara, not having an escape thanks to the tails, charged as much chakra as he could and yelled, "Shinra Tensei." The force of the gravitational push was enough to put a very large crater in the ground, annihilate Naruto's tails, and destroy the spear coming at him, but still push the sparks at the airborne Uchiha. Said airborne Uchiha tried getting out of the way of the electricity, but it traveled way too quickly, and it collided, causing him to drop to the floor. The patriarch landed on his knees in pain. His Rinnegan eye literally exploded from his socket. He grabbed his eye in pain, not having felt so much pain in his life. The blonde was thankful that there wasn't any bones in those tails, but he was still pissed and grew another tail. With this 8th tail, muscles covered the blonde's body before a more protective cloak of chakra covered his body. Though it wasn't the skin or fur that came with the 9th tail, it was as durable as armor. He did grow to about the size of a 2-story house. Sasuke, after getting over the effects of the paralytic sparks, returned Susanoo to the fight. Fuck, I used too much chakra. I should have brought support with me, he thought until he felt himself sink into the ground. He cursed and blew a small stream of fire at the ground, turning the sand into glass. He jumped out of the shattered glass and looked around for the man he was fighting 15 minutes ago, knowing he was providing long-range support. With the distraction, the duo charged their separate attacks and let them fly. Madara spotted Gaara to his left and glared, just before his danger sense went off. He reluctantly turned his head to the side, just in time to see 2 ultimately dangerous techniques headed straight for him. The only thing Madara did was frown his bloody face, while silently cursing the 2 rivals, before the techniques crashed into his body, sending him, yet again, across the landscape, leaving another quarter-mile gouge in the area. After the deed was done, Naruto and Sasuke powered down and Gaara appeared in front of them, giving Naruto his sword back. That, by far, was the toughest fight I have ever been in. Pain had nothing on that monster, Naruto said, popping his bones back into his joints, shuddering as he did so. I would never have been able to fight and win against that man alone. Thank Kami Sasuke was here with me, he said, looking at said Uchiha. Sasuke was breathing hard. Using the 3rd level of the curse seal was very taxing on his body, and using it for about 10 minutes straight along with his eternal Manjikyu and his Susanoo, he was surprised he was even alive right now. He was still surprised he even found a way to strengthen the curse seal. After all, he wasn't a scientist on Orochimaru's level, or even Kabuto's level. Maybe it wasn't even a level 3, but just a higher power boost. That annoying ability to phase through our attacks were the most annoying about fighting him, he said, calming down and raising from his previous kneeling position. The blonde nodded. True, I nearly went 9 tails. There's no telling what would have happened if that would have happened. We were lucky Gaara was here to distract him in time, or we would still be fighting that monster. Monster, you're calling me a monster? A voice said that was filled with insanity. The 3 turned to see Madara, or what was left of Madara. The man in question was tremendously wounded. How he survived for this long is a mystery in itself. Madara was missing his entire right arm and both his legs. The 3 could tell all the way from their position that his rib cage visible and blood was leaking through the open cavity. Naruto looked at Sasuke and nodded. Let's end this war, he muttered, charging up a Rasengan. He continued pushing chakra into the technique and felt it expand and grow bigger, and knew that it changed from blue to purple, thanks to him adding Yuki to the mix. With his sphere the size of a giant medicine ball, he ran full speed at Madara. At the same time Sasuke charged a Chidori, he too added more chakra and it became a Raikiri. His body pulsed and the lightning turned from white yellowish to black, thanks to enhancing his technique with the curse seal. He looked at Madara with his regular Sharingan and ran full speed. I'm not a monster, I'm a god, he yelled, pushing out his remaining arm and opened a portal to another dimension. Oh wow, another one with a god complex. Naruto thought, wait, what's happening? Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit 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 shit. Both Naruto and Sasuke thought as they flew through the portal. Silence fell over the battlefield as Gaara watched, shocked at the turn of events. What the fuck? Where'd they go? He yelled, his usual monotonous voice filled with anger and confusion. He heard a soft yet insane laughter, just as his troops landed all around him. What happened to Naruto-kun and Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked, body flickering near Gaara. More questions were bombarded at the Kazekage, but all he could really hear was the insane laughter. He glared at the laughing man. Madara started coughing large amounts of blood by the time Gaara walked up to him. Where did you send them? Answer me or I'll finish you right here and now, the Godame yelled as he wrapped Madara in a cocoon of sand. Madara coughed more blood, staining the sand crimson. He gave a bloody smirk. Since I'm going to die anyway, I might as well tell you. It's obvious really, I sent them to another dimension, which dimension I don't even know. But your friends will soon find out, I just hope they suffer for what they did to me, he said as he went into another coughing fit, his Sharingan returning to normal black. I don't have much time left, I'm going to die soon, he muttered to himself. More sand wrapped around the Uchiha's body. No, you're dying now, he said, squeezing his, destroying the body and reducing it to a ball of flesh. Literally squeezing the remainder of the blood from the body. The shinobi behind Gaara watched as a small waterfall of blood fell to the ground. It took a minute after the last drop of blood hit the floor, before the cheering began. They were extremely happy that the main menace of the enemy side of the war was dead, completely. The condensed bundle of blood and sand crashed to the floor, and caused the shinobi to be silent. A small tornado of wind and sand was swirling around Gaara. Why are you cheering? 2 of the strongest ninjas in my generation, my friends, are gone. There's literally no way of ever finding them. My closest friend Uzumaki Naruto is the one that single-handedly prevented this world from diving into darkness with his actions throughout his life. Uchiha Sasuke, not a very close friend, but a friend nonetheless. Those 2, by themselves, defeated the most notorious villain in the history of the shinobi world, and you have the audacity to cheer after what just happened. You all should feel ashamed of yourselves. Gaara paused as he started walking away. Let's hurry up and find Kabuto and end this war, so I can go home, he said, vanishing with a shunshin. The only one that had really been grieving in the crowd was Sakura. She hadn't been cheering at all. The pink-haired medical jounin just lost both of her genin teammates at the same damn time. That's fucking devastating, to be the only one alive on your team. Other than your sensei, of course. She was the reason why he was able to distract Madara at the time that he did, because she was there to heal any damage that he might have sustained. Sakura was soon to follow Gaara's example and left the field, her head downcast. She really wanted to help her teammates, but knew that she would have only gotten in the way. Because at the speed they were going, it was amazing how much each of them has grown in the past 5 years. Even though she herself grew stronger, she was yet again left in the dust by her comrades. Never again will I just stand on the sidelines. I will end this war, Kabuto, I'm coming for you. A month later, Sakura, with the help of Gaara, Kakashi, and others, found and fought Kabuto. Through a long and hard battle, the shinobi forces came out on top. A month after that, they defeated the remainder of the White Setsus, and 3 months after that, they hunted down and defeated the rest of the undead ninjas. A week after that, Kakashi was named the Nanadame Hokage. A week after inauguration equals. Kakashi was a little reluctant to become Hokage, but seeing as the hyperactive, most surprising knucklehead ninja was the previous, he decided to honor his lost student and rule the village like the blonde would have wanted him to. He sighed as he looked out the window and gazed at the faces caved into the mountain. The ninjas were beginning the carving for his face, but he wasn't looking at that, he was staring at Naruto's face. Be safe wherever you are, you and Sasuke. With the duo equals. The scenery was a beautiful one, the grass was green and the trees were as well. Various animals were resting in the sunlight or nibbling on acorns. Crash, crash. What was that? Groans of pain were heard by 2 bodies. Sasuke was the first to sit up. He looked around and noticed that he was nowhere near Hino Kuni or any place he's ever been to. Currently the teen was only wearing a pair of pants, and his sword was on the floor a couple of feet away from him. He picked it up and held his head in slight pain. Ugh, what did I hit? He asked himself, glancing at a broken branch. Oh right, the tree. Even though the tree was large, it was by no standards compared to any trees in Fire Country. Compared to them, this was like an infant tree whose roots just began settling in the ground. And its branches were as skinny as an anorexic supermodel. Sasuke was thrown from his related thoughts when he heard a groan. Naruto groaned as he sat up. Much like Sasuke, he was without his upper attire, excluding a small strip of his muscle shirt that somehow survived the transformations. Unlike Sasuke, his body was covered in tattooed seals, one for his cloak located on his inner right forearm. He once had a summoning contract for the Toads, but after fully absorbing the Kyuubi, he severed his ties with the Toads to become the boss of the Foxes. Now he could tell that it was a regular tattoo. On his right pectoral muscle was a seal that contained half his power. Right now it was fully released, due to him not closing it after fighting Madara. The seal on his navel was just a tattoo as well, due to the Kyuubi's conscience no longer there. Also because he had full control of the power, and there was no reason for the seal to separate the Fox's Yuki from his Churka with him having all the power. He slowly stood up as he shook his head and looked around. Where are we? He asked out loud, noticing Sasuke on the periphery of his vision. I have no idea, but do you feel different for some reason? The raven-haired teen asked as Naruto picked his own sword up. The blonde looked at the other teen in suspicion. What kind of fucking question is that? Did you do anything to me? He asked frantically. The Uchiha looked disgusted. What? No, Kami, no. Oh, thank Kami. Wait, what do you mean by that? Am I not good enough for you? I didn't do anything to you. Alright, calm down. I was just playing, geez. The whiskered blonde said with his hands up defensively. But back to your question, I do feel differently. I just don't know why. Getting an idea, Naruto tried to make a Rasengan, but instead of a small blue sphere, the white energy came a little too quickly and grew the size of a basketball. Whoa, this is incredible. It's a lot easier to control than normal, and it's white and. As Naruto was listing off the things that felt different about the new energy, Sasuke had been looking at the large, white sphere that was rotating above the blonde's palm. He activated his Sharingan and nearly yelled in pain at the amount of energy within the sphere. But he realized, in that short glance, the energy wasn't the same as chakra. He also noticed he felt a little stronger with his Sharingan activated. You see, chakra is the mixture of both physical energy and spiritual energy. Without either of the two, one's body cannot generate enough chakra to do anything, except the smallest tasks. A perfect example was Rock Lee. His body couldn't generate a lot of chakra, due to the spiritual energy his body couldn't produce. Both teens stopped what they were doing when they heard heavy stomps around them. They looked around, but didn't immediately see anything, and that troubled them a little. Who or what is there? They each thought out loud. Your souls are going to be yummy, and it looks like I got a 2-for-1 deal. This truly is my lucky day. A dark voice said as the stomping grew more frequent and the sound was getting louder. The duo knew, whatever the voice thing was, it was charging at them. Judging from the weight of the stomps and the huge prints it was leaving in the ground, this monster was extremely large. They each jumped back, and they each could see a faint distortion in the air, telling them that it was the monster. While in the air, Naruto and Sasuke each did a different set of hand signs. Katon Karyo-enden. Futon Kazuyoden. The two techniques collided just as it converged on the distortion. An explosion and scream was heard. Well, it wasn't really a scream, it was more like a screech. Not a second later a roar was heard, and by the time the two landed, they finally seen what they were fighting. An ugly monster-looking thing. It was 11 feet tall and had a huge body. The arms and legs were even bigger. The legs were even bigger, and the tail was just as big. But the most noticeable thing about it was its face was a giant mask. Also, there was a black hole in the middle of its chest, right where the heart should be. That's an ugly motherfucker. Sasuke. The blonde looked at his comrade, disbelieving about what was just said. What? It doesn't care about what I said. Apparently it only cares about eating our souls. I'm not going to let this ugly-ass monster eat my soul, the Uchiha said, pointing at the monster. Naruto just brushed it off. No, not that. That I totally agree with. I'm just surprised you said it. What happened to your calm exterior? The blonde said, scratching his head. The last Uchiha just sighed. Let's just say a lot of shit has happened in the past 24 hours of my life. Stop ignoring me! The monster screeched, charging at them again, diving when it got near. When it dove, trying to eat them both at the same time, the duo each dodged on opposite sides. Sasuke was quick to unsheath his sword and cut into the beast's arm. His sword got stuck halfway through, but he solved that problem when his sword was covered in white electricity. With the extra power, the sword cleanly cut through the arm, finishing the job. Meanwhile, on the other side, Naruto flexed his claws and completely slashed the arm clean off, cutting it in 4 different places. The chopped-off appendages twitched around for a couple seconds before it started to bubble and connect back to the monster. The teens met back with each other and watched, Sasuke with his Sharingan activated. This is intriguing. Its regenerative abilities is amazing. It's like a curse-sealed monster, without the regenerative abilities. The blonde scoffed, not better than mine. Sasuke crossed his arms. We just cut both his arms off and they're just now getting reattached. Face it, Blondie, you're jealous? Naruto just waved it off and unsheathed his blade. Whatever, it's time to end this anyway. Wind swirled around his blade, before it melded tightly to the blade, become just slightly visible. At the same time, Sasuke covered his blade in lightning. He wasn't as skilled as Kurabi in the lightning department, but he could still pierce through just about anything. I'm tired of being played with. It's time to die. The monster charged yet again. The teens smirked at each other. Let's go, they said, charging. Give me your souls. A second later, the opponents appeared on the opposite sides. Naruto sealed his sword and Sasuke sheathed his. Sorry you didn't ask nice enough, the blonde said as he began walking away. Naruto, where you going? It's not over. The blonde turned around to see the monster regenerating again. His jaw dropped. Really, it's not dead yet. Everything below its head was completely destroyed. Sasuke got an idea. Maybe that's why we didn't kill it. Maybe you need to destroy the head or something. I felt that mask. It was pretty hard. There must be a reason. Just stand back and watch an elite work his magic, he said, a Chidori appearing in his hand. Like with Naruto, it was incredibly easy to control his energy now that he was in this place. Fools, you're too weak to kill me. Now give me what I want. The beast charged again. Suddenly Sasuke appeared right in front of the beast. He thrust his fist forward and pierced the mask, causing the monster to screech and begin to disintegrate. Ha, that's better. I hope you took notes, Dobe. The blonde scoffed. Whatever, well, I guess this is bye for now, team. But don't worry, I have a feeling we'll see each other again, soon, Naruto said, taking out a scroll and unsealing his custom sage cloak and put it on. He looked back at Sasuke and flipped him off with a smile. It's been fun. He vanished, leaving Sasuke there. Sasuke shook his head, unsealing his Akatsuki robe. Real mature, Dobe, he said, smirking while walking away. Minutes after the two left, a black cat wandered onto the field. It wiggled its whiskers for a while before walking to where Naruto had been standing. Interesting, those two fought and destroyed a high-level hollow. It wasn't anywhere near the power of a Minos Grande, but it was strong nonetheless. They didn't break a sweat, and they weren't serious either, the cat thought. It then walked to where Sasuke was standing. They're strong, incredibly strong. I can tell they were tired even before the hollow made an appearance, meaning they must have fought before. She looked around the small clearing, but look at this place. Other than the fight that just happened now, it doesn't seem like a fight occurred at all. Their Ryatsu was easily captain level, but they weren't Shinigami, not even new ones. So the questions are, who are they, and where'd they come from? It thought as it began walking out of the clearing. I guess it's time to pay a visit to an old friend. A manly voice came from the cat, before it vanished without a trace, raising the question, what kind of dimension did the two shinobi cross into? Equals closest town equals. The blonde walked out of the forest to see that it wasn't a large forest. He was actually in a park, and he was in a town. He walked around, hoping that these people spoke Japanese, or else he's screwed. As he was walking, he started listening in on some conversations. One in particular was one with this tall orange-haired kid yelling at a group of skateboarders, not that he knew what a skateboard was. "What do you see here, you the one in the middle?" the orange-haired teen said. Vas. Correct. The orange sherbet-haired teen said, drop-kicking the punk-looking kid in the face. After landing on his feet, the teen pointed to another punk. "You explain to me what position it's in." The scared kid started shaking. "It's on its side," the mean teen said, punching the scared teen's face, knocking him back to his friend on the floor. "Now you, tell me why someone would place a vase there and why it's on its side." The remaining skateboarder gulped. "Someone must have put it there because someone died there recently." He gulped again. "It's on its side, because one of us probably knocked it over," he said, pausing and shutting his eyes after finishing, thinking he was going to be punched or kicked. After a while he opened his eyes, only to see a boot collide into his face, sending him toward his other buddies. It was then that the tall teen just started to stomp on them repeatedly, until he got tired of their screams. He allowed them to scamper off while he went to the vase. The watching blonde was surprised to see a young girl appear, floating, might I add. She thanked the boy, who placed new flowers in her vase, and walked away. "This town is weird. If I understood that correctly, that young girl was a ghost. First that monster and now that ghost. Man, I think I need to catch some Z's," he said, walking the opposite way. Equals another part of town equals. "What the hell is a Karakura town?" a certain Uchiha thought, staring at a sign. "Now I'm certain this isn't anywhere near the elemental nations." He spoke softly. "That bastard really sent us into another dimension." He turned and walked through the town, scouting it and listening to conversations. He looked at all the tall buildings. The designs were similar to Ames buildings, but the construction was entirely different. As he was looking at the buildings, he saw another one of those monsters. It stomped on the ground and its claws gouged into the side of a building. He was about to react and fight it, when he noticed that none of the other people were reacting to the monster, but to what it was doing. It made him realize that these people couldn't see the monster directly, and yet he could. He was, yet again, about to end the monster when he got feeling it was about to be handled. He was proved right when he witnessed a figure glide through the air, slicing the monster in two, from the white mask down. After killing the monster, the figure, which he now knew was a young girl, landed 10 feet in front of him. She stared at him for a while and then jumped away. Maybe it was the fact that he seen what she did, or maybe it was the fact that he was wearing a robe with red clouds on it. He didn't know, but she might have known that he could see her, and she was just in denial. Sasuke took his hand from his sword and walked to the nearest store, hoping the money he had on him was compatible for this dimension. A ring was heard when he walked through the door. "Excuse me, ma'am." "Yes, sir, what do you need?" the middle-aged woman asked, looking at the young man wearing a black cloak decorated with red clouds. He looked weird in her eyes, but he was a customer, and she'll treat him like any other customer. Sasuke took out 500 ryo from his pocket. "Would I be able to use this money in this town?" The woman inspected the money and nodded her head. "Yes, you would. Now what can I get you, young man?" Sasuke shook his head. "Nothing, that's all I wanted to ask." "Okay, have a good day." The teen nodded and left the store. "Good, now I need to look for a place to stay." Equals with Naruto equals. In his confusion about trying to find an apartment, he wandered around the town and ended up in front of Karakura High. Oops, I did not want to be anywhere near a place like this. He turned to leave but bumped into a student. "Hey punk, watch where you're going." The older teen tried to push the blonde but missed. "You're a fast one, huh? Well, you can't do anything to the best karate user in the entire school," the kid said, taking a stance. Blue Eyes looked at the brown in concealed mirth. "The best?" he asked, scoffing. "Well then, put your skills to the test again, a foreign opponent. And to make things interesting, I want to use my hands," he said, putting both hands behind his back. The blonde arrogance angered the teen, and he charged without thinking. He threw a punch and Naruto dodged, still in the swing of the teen, shifted and did a roundhouse kick. Naruto also dodged that by tilting his head backwards. "Pretty good, let's see if you can continue this little combo," Naruto said, making the teen do a leg sweep after finishing the roundhouse. The two fighters were gaining a little crowd around them. The other students were impressed with the fight. The blonde hopped over it and took a couple of steps back. "Pretty good, but still an amateur compared to me," he said, angering the teen even further. Fire burned in the teen's eyes as he charged at Naruto, He was going full speed, but to Naruto it was slow motion, very slow motion. He sidestepped the punch and tripped him. He then put his foot on the back of the adolescent's head and scoffed. Amateur, you need a century's worth of training before you even catch my attention. From where I'm from, a toddler could wipe the floor with you. What is the meaning of this? The principal of the school said, walking up to them, and causing the other students to quickly walk away. He pointed at the whiskered blonde. Get your foot off my son's head. This prompted Naruto to slowly take his foot from the brat's head. Said brat stood up. Are you alright, son? No, this thug just picked a fight with me for no reason, daddy. Punish him, he said with tears at the edge of his eyes. While the son was talking, the principal had been glaring at the ninja. I don't know you, kid. I usually remember the face of all my students here. But with you I'm drawing a blank. Who are you and where'd you come from? The dejected blonde lowered his head at the question. I don't know where I was born, but I do know my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I've been an orphan since as long as I could remember, he said, smirking inwardly, telling the truth about himself, well except for the part about not knowing where he was born. The blonde could hear laughter in his head and his smirk widened. The principal looked sad for a while before he steeled his visage. Well, orphan Naruto, as punishment, I expect you in class 4C, and he looked at his watch. 15 minutes, you better hurry up, one can get lost pretty quickly on campus. The blonde's face had a look of disbelief at what was just suggested. Like hell I am. I promised myself long ago that I was never going to school ever again. And I'm not going to start now, in a place like this. You can count me out. The man rubbed his beard. Well, it's either that or the police officer over there will take you to jail for fighting. And plus you're still a kid and kids go to school. Hey, kid! Like hell, I'm a kid, I'm 18 years old. I'm too overaged to be going to school, he said, glancing at the officer, but I don't want to go to jail. Fighting my way out of this would be too much of a drag. Really, I doubt you're 18, you look more like a 16-year-old, and that means you're just the right age for school. And plus, there's another kid around your height, and he looks nothing like an 18-year-old. So that I'm 18 bit isn't going to work on me, the principal quickly said as the officer walked up to them. Alright, mister, I'll go to the damn class, Naruto grumbled, crossing his arms. I was told there was a disturbance here, Takanada-san, the officer said, chewing a piece of gum. A disturbance isn't what I'll call it. It was more of a spar between two healthy fighters. My son and I were just about to begin the tour for the new student here, Takanade said, indicating the blonde. The officer stared at them before tipping his hat. Right, well, I don't want to keep you here. Off you go now, he said, walking away. Well, now that that's over, I guess I'll resume my search for an apartment, the blonde said, walking away. My ass you are, here goes your uniform, the principal said, grabbing Naruto's shoulder and pulled out the school's uniform, from no one knows where. It was a white, long-sleeved dress shirt and a pair of gray pants. The blonde groaned, mad that he couldn't just vanish, unless he wanted to cause a mass confusion. The principal shoved the uniform in the blonde's face and dragged him into the nearest bathroom. Hurry and get dressed, you have 10 minutes left, he said, waiting outside. 3 minutes later, the blonde came out in the uniform, with a scowl in place. His previous pants, cloak and sword was nowhere in sight. Of course, they were sealed in a scroll that was sealed on the palm of his hand, in the form of Konoha's insignia. Mr. Takanada was puzzled about the whereabouts of his previous attire but dismissed it and chauffeured the blonde to the correct classroom, giving him a tour on the way. 15 minutes later, the principal became immensely surprised the blonde had grasped the outline of the campus. They walked up to his homeroom. Here we are, room 4C. Have a nice time, learn well, he said, waving as he walked away. Naruto sighed and walked inside, interrupting the teacher as she was teaching the class. Sorry for the interruption, but I was sent here by Takanada-san. Starting today I'm going to be a part of this class, he said with his hands in his pockets before he bowed. The teacher was a woman around the early 30s. She has dark blue hair and dark blue eyes like Naruto. She's got this hourglass figure that made Naruto think she should have been a model instead of a teacher. She had long legs, a nice and large C-cup breast. Her blue hair was nice and long, even though it was in a bun, he knew it could reach the middle of her back. And speaking of her backside, it was nice and firm. She was wearing a white blouse and a short black skirt that went just above her knees. It's okay you didn't interrupt the class, young man, she said, smiling at him. Though I wonder why Takanada-san would have a student enroll in the middle of the year, she said, her finger gently scratching her cheek. Well, anyway, my name is Mei Kasumi. You may call me either Mei-sensei or Kasumi-sensei. Why don't you introduce yourself to the class? She said, indicating the class. Naruto had been staring at her very discreetly, but he knew that she caught him staring, just by her smiling glare. He laughed nervously and rubbed the back of his head, a habit that he couldn't get rid of. How rude of me, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like many things, like ramen and other stuff. I don't like the 3 minutes it takes to wait for the ramen to cook and people that are annoying. My goals are to make friends and graduate. Might as well say that, this place could be a great cover. My dream for the future, well, it should be the same as yours. Well, I hope we can get along, while I'm here. He said, looking around the room, noticing all the cute girls, and that same orange-haired boy from before. There was a girl with black hair with a very light tint of very light violet. From where he stood she reminded him of Tenten, in a tomboyish kind of way. Her chocolate brown eyes were staring at him as were the other eyes in the class. Kasumi-chan, where do I sit? He said, putting his hands back in his pockets. Kasumi inwardly giggled. This kid didn't use the suffix she wanted, but she just couldn't be mad at him. Despite his age, he was quite the looker. You will sit behind Kurosaki Ichigo. Ichigo-sen, raise your hand for Naruto-kun. In his quest to look for the hand, he noticed another girl, diagonally in front of Ichigo. She was large, and by large I mean goddamn. She had a huge rack, barely contained by her uniform blouse. To better help the containment, she wore a tan vest over the blouse. She has caramel hair and brown eyes that seem to strangely turn gray in the sunlight. Most of the girls were gushing at the sight of the blonde. I say most because there was one girl that was glaring at him. A redhead. She saw the way he looked at Orihime, and wasn't going to let the new guy capture her heart. Said girl was watching Naruto with a sense of curiosity. The blonde, to her, seemed like he was hiding something, and she felt that she should find out what he was hiding. She watched the way he walked. Maybe he's from a clan of assassins sent to kill somebody in the city. Or maybe he's a karate scout in disguise as a student. Or maybe dash. Orihime was knocked out of her thoughts when the teacher asked if she knew the answer to the question on the board. He's an alien invader sent to enslave our planet. She screamed, standing up. Silence followed the outburst. Orihime was a weird girl with a bubbly personality and an even weirder appetite, but this outburst was by far the weirdest. Orihime, do I need to send you outside? The teacher asked. Orihime chuckled embarrassingly as she sat down in her seat with a blush on her face. Gomen Kasumi-sensei, she said, looking at the question, and began to answer correctly. Naruto's attention turned from Ichigo, who he had been studying ever since seeing him beating up those goons and speaking to the ghosts, to Orihime, who surprised him by answering the question correctly, even after her strange outburst. Such a strange girl, coming to this school will be far more interesting than I thought. School rooftop. The same girl Sasuke seen was standing on the gate of the roof. She wore a black kimono, with a matching black hakama. A white obi was around her waist, and what looked like a plain sword was strapped to her hip. On her feet she wore straw sandals and white socks. She has black hair and dark purple eyes, and looked young, around the age of 15 if one was to guess. She was just standing on the gate, letting the breeze go through her hair. So many strong Ryatsu signatures in this school. Counting that one boy from before, that makes 3 incredibly strong signatures in this town, with a few lesser but still above average signatures, she thought, flipping a phone open. It beeped for a while and then went away. Who could have destroyed that hollow? Was Sasuke. The Uchiha was in the resident section of the town, and he had just bought an apartment that contained 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. He was about to go inside when another monster appeared. Oh, Kami, not again. This is the 3rd time. Feeling tired of seeing these monsters, he quickly disappeared and with a quick Chidori no Yari through the beast's skull, and it was over. He let out a deep sigh, thankful that nobody was around him. I'm so sleepy, he said, walking upstairs and going into his apartment, thanking Kami that it was fully furnished. He grinned at his queen-sized bed. Sleepy time. He droned and promptly fell on his bed. Naruto let out what had to be the 17th inaudible sigh of the first hour he was in the class. He had to keep telling himself that it was a new dimension and that meant new things to learn, but sweet Kami the sensei was teaching about mathematics, which was obviously multidimensional. He didn't care how hot she looked, the way she taught was a little dull. The only subject he really needed to learn was history, at the very least. Anything else would be a waste of time. At that moment the bell rung, in which the sensei put down her chalk and announced that it was lunchtime and to meet up after it was over. He was sure she was specifically talking to him for that, but whatever, if it would get him out of this room he'll take it. He slowly rose from his seat and looked around the room. Nearly all the students were removing bento boxes from the book bags. Then it hit him like a raisin gun to the stomach. He didn't have any lunch to eat. His stomach picked that rhyme to growl and announce its sadness. What I would do for a bowl of ramen right now, Naruto thought as he slowly walked out of the classroom, rubbing his stomach in sadness. He didn't know how or why, but after leaving the classroom he found himself on the roof of the school. Muzumaki-san, you don't have any lunch? An innocent voice said to Naruto's right. The blonde looked around to see two groups, one of boys and one of girls, and being the person he was thanks to his late sensei, he sat next to the girls. He looked at the group of girls who were busy looking at Orihime, not at all surprised that she was being kind, especially to someone she didn't even meet. Naruto gave a soft smile as he shook his head. No, I don't. Thanks for noticing. Naruto trailed off, not knowing her name. Oh, my name is Orihime Inoue, this is Tatsuki Arisawa, and the others are Chizuru, Michiru, Mehana, and Ryo. Orihime said with a big smile as she put an octopus tentacle in his face. I'll share with you. I always make some for my friends, but they never want to eat any of it. She offered, dangling the tentacle in his face. Her friends freaked out knowing that everything Orihime made was weird, even if it had an appearance of normality. Naruto paid no mind to their looks as his stomach growled before he allowed Orihime to feed it to him. He chewed it for a couple of long seconds before his face lit up in delight. This is delicious, he said as now the bubbly girl's face lit up with his. Behind them her friends stared in disgust as the two ate Orihime's freaky cooking. It was at that moment that Naruto finally looked to the corner of the rooftop to quietly observe the young girl that seemed to be looking into his area. Who is that? The blonde asked himself, knowing something wasn't right with the girl, not just because she was wearing a black kimono-looking garb, and was wielding a sword. I wonder, Naruto continued thinking as he fluxed his energy just a little, before cutting it off entirely. The slight widening of the eyes and the tensing of her muscles gave her away, as they locked eye contact. Though it was like she was in doubt, a lot of doubt. She frowned to herself before she jumped away. Naruto mentally shrugged, so as to not arouse suspicion about what he was shrugging about. With his mind now clear of mysterious people around him, he focused on becoming friends with these females. Although he had a feeling the Red didn't like that he was being so close to Orihime. So he made it his self-proclaimed mission to make her jealous. That, and he was starting to like the big-breasted knucklehead. She reminded him of himself when he was younger, and there was nothing wrong with that. 5 hours later. Naruto didn't know how he made it through the day without losing his mind, but staying in that class was such a drag. He had to admit though, he'll continue to go, even if it's only to see Orihime. Her kind heart reminding him of Hinata so much it wasn't even funny, that and she was wicked smart, although extremely silly. It was around 6 when Naruto left the library. But the school ended at 4, meaning that Naruto spent an extra 3 hours just reading books in the library. There were so many books to read from, it was like his shinobi career all over again. Mostly the part where he read jutsu scrolls and books on battle tactics. The blonde sighed as he carried a stack of textbooks. It was 4 books in his arms, and the worst thing was that he didn't have a place to put them. I need to find Sasuke. I'm pretty sure he has a place to stay by now. He hasn't moved in the past 6 hours. Naruto said as the quickest way to the location would be a shunshin, but to be honest, using low-level techniques would be tougher than high-level. Not until he experimented with this new energy would he use it to that intent, but high-level techniques are alright, judging from his fight earlier. Well, he wouldn't use it for that reason and the fact that it would still freak people out. The blonde looked in the air at the majestic sun. It must have been springtime because he also noticed lots of flowers around the city. The sun looked amazing while it was setting. That's one thing he was glad didn't change, the only different thing is the location. Look at what we have here, fellas. A new face we can mess up. And look, he even has funny-looking hair like the bastard Ichigo. A rough-looking boy said as he and 3 others surrounded Naruto. What's with your hair, Daffodil? Did you lose a bet or something? Another gangster-looking person said. I say we cut it off before we toss him in the river, the third gangster bully said as he took out a pocket knife. Naruto lazily looked ahead to see that a bridge was coming up and there was indeed a river. There's no escape, Blondie, so I suggest you just take it like a man. And try not to scream too loud, the last rough-looking boy said as they all charged. Naruto sighed as he placed both hands on each side of his stack of books, to prevent them from falling to the ground. They were brand spanking new. Legs don't fail me now, he thought as he began dodging and kicking whoever came within distance. The first 2 went down immediately. He noticed the boy with the knife charging and quickly moved his head out of the way of the strikes and kicked his knee sideways so as to prevent severe injuries. The teen buckled and that gave Naruto opportunity to kick the knife out of the teen's hand and straight into the air. Not stopping in the slightest, he immediately dropped the leg down on the guy's shoulder, crashing him into the ground. Naruto gave a long yawn as he faced down the last goon. Forget this guy, I'm out of here, the goon said as he seemed to have gained a dash of common sense as he tried to turn and run. By then Naruto was beginning to grow extremely bored with the poor performance. So with a quick burst of speed he appeared behind the guy, his foot planted on the side of his head, and sending him flying sideways where he hit a building. He had thought about just tossing one of the unconscious goons at the runaway, but that wouldn't have been fun, would it have? Naruto thought to himself with a thoughtful look on his face. It was at that exact moment that the blonde realized how tired he was. Damn teacher not letting me sleep in class. It's not my fault, Orihime's lunch filled me up so nicely. Weirdly his stomach growled, it was like it was agreeing with Naruto. The blonde patted his stomach contently before he began to think out loud. I wonder if Sasuke has anything to eat, he said as his feet unconsciously started moving faster. Kurosaki Clinic equals. Hey everybody, I'm home. The tall orange-haired boy said as he entered his home, only to get kicked in the face, surprisingly by his own father. Why are you coming home so late? You know dinner is at 7 o'clock sharp, the father said after laughing in triumph. Ichigo growled as he got up and quickly punched his father back. What the hell is wrong with you? No other parents beat up their kids constantly. And for your information, I was busy. Son, you know you have to always be on your toes. Never let your guard down, because the results are ugly. Isshin, the father of Ichigo, said proudly as he and his son started comically fighting in the dining room. Hey Ichigo, eat your dinner before it gets cold, Ichigo's youngest sister Yuzu said with a wooden spoon in her hand and a pout on her face. Karen, the middle child, continued to eat her rice with a look of indifference on her face. The two males were too busy to listen, between their fighting and arguing. I'll let them fight, Yuzu, you know Dad. He does this every day, she said between bites. Ichigo, you have another one, she added. Ichigo stopped his fighting long enough to see a ghost floating behind him. When you get here? Go away, he said, trying to swat the specter away. I can only sense them. I think it's cool you two can see them. Tusan's the only one that can't see them, Yuzu said, smiling. I don't believe in ghosts, Karen said, staring blankly at her sister. This shocked Yuzu. How can you not believe in them, when you can see them? Yuzu questioned her sibling. Karen continued to show indifference to the subject. Just because I can see them, doesn't I have to believe in them? She said coldly. Finally Ichigo gave up on his trying to rid the ghost from his sight. Fortunately he gave up in the nick of time, because both he and his father punched each other at the same time. Isshin slowly slid off of his son's fist and crumpled to the floor. Forget dinner, I'm going to bed, the high school student said as he gathered his book bag and walked up the stairs. Yuzu started pouting more as she watched her brother leave without eating dinner. It's your fault, Dad, Karen said, causing Isshin to comically ask why. CD. Ichigo laid in his bed aimlessly staring at the ceiling. I still can't figure out what that girl was. Where did she come from and what was with that monster? Ichigo thought to himself as he began to replay the events that happened about an hour ago. Suddenly a black-winged butterfly appeared over his face, via his open window. He watched as it flapped its wings, traveling to the middle of his room. Then suddenly a girl seemed to materialize through his wall and stood on his desk. It was the same girl that he had seen earlier when that ghost girl was being attacked not too long ago. Who are you? Ichigo asked in a whisper. Sadly his question was received upon deaf ears as the girl causally and cautiously hopped off the desk. Then out of the blue she put her hand on the hilt of the sword, freaking Ichigo out. Who the hell are you? What do you want? He yelled as he quickly retreated to the wall, farthest away from the mysterious girl with the sword. Yet again his questions weren't answered and it was beginning to piss him off, judging from the tick mark developing on his forehead. It's near, she said, scanning the room. What the hell are you talking about? Ichigo yelled loudly as he kicked the raven-haired girl in the back. First you suddenly appear in my room. Now you're talking nonsense. I asked who you are? Ichigo finished yelling as he pointed at the downed girl. You can see me? The short girl asked a little meekly from her spot on the floor. Of course I can see you, I just kicked you. Are you messed up in the head or something? The high school student said with a frown. The black-garbed girl stood to her feet and quickly grasped the 15-year-old's chin and quizzically studied him, fascinated that she could be seen by him. Strange. People usually can't see me, she said, moving his chin from the left to the right, quite intrigued. Quit talking nonsense, Ichigo said angrily as he tried to kick the girl. Keyword being tried because she softly and gracefully jumped on it, and then onto his head, where she kicked off his body entirely. Ichigo murmured some incoherent things as he laid face first on the floor. Fine, you asked who I was, I'll tell you I am a Shinigami, Soul Reaper. Equals the streets of Karakura equals. In the streets of the dark ski town was a young girl. This girl wasn't normal. She was the same young ghost that Ichigo was protecting earlier. She was busy running in fright as footsteps echoed behind her, leaving large prints, showing just how heavy her pursuer was. The distortion in the air clarified itself to show another monster. It stopped moving and sniffed the air. So many delicious smelling food. 2 in each location. I'll go for the closest. It said as it totally disregarded the lonely spirit it was previously chasing. Its new destination being where Kurosaki Clinic resided. Equals with Naruto equals. Naruto grunted in frustration as he knocked on Sasuke's apartment door for the 300th time. Come on team, open the damn door. Naruto said in a hushed yell. He could feel the seals around the house, warding off unwanted signatures, which he knew was him. For the last time, Dobe, go away. Sasuke yelled from the other side of the door. Come on Uchiha, quit being stingy. I know you have 2 bedrooms in there. Naruto said, banging on the door more. How do you know that? Sasuke said with a frown. Naruto unknowingly smiled at the door. For 2 reasons. 1, you have seals lining every inch of your apartment. I'm not a seal master for nothing, I know your apartment's entire layout thanks to your seals. And 2, your landlord told me when I told him we were roommates, and I was too busy to be with you when you registered the room. He thought it was tricky, but he disregarded it when he seen my uniform. Naruto explained. Sasuke was silent for a while. Plus I have some tomatoes for you. I know you didn't have anything to eat. So here's my offering. Naruto added when his clone ran towards him with a bag of tomatoes. Though Naruto couldn't see the old Avenger's face, he knew it lit up in slight delight. How exactly did you know I had a taste for tomatoes? Sasuke said, not being able to hide the happiness and hunger from his voice. Naruto's smile turned into a smirk. How naive of you, Sasuke. You know damn well there's a file on everybody. I felt sort of nostalgic after taking the hat and looked at files of the old team. The blonde truly prides himself on completing his most desired goal. Now forever will his face be engraved into the mountain of Hokage, along with his father, Saratobi, his grandfather figure, and Tsunade, his mother/grandmother figure. No doubt Kakashi took the hat after him. After all, if the rumors were correct, he was supposed to be the Rokudame, but declined knowing and shunning the responsibility in leading an entire village. But now that he is the 7th Hokage, he's probably going to try to make the kunoichi wear mini-skirts. I should have did that. Naruto thought with a perverted giggle. Though he had spent less time as a Kage than his father, he felt that it was all the time he needed to gain the necessary experience he truly needed in leadership. Being in this dimension didn't bother him as much as he thought it would. Though being with Gaara and being called the youngest Kages in history would be missed. Too bad he couldn't have been sent along with them. That would have made their time much more enjoyable, even with his apathetic nature. Damn it, loser, would you quit staring off into space and get in here already? The old Kage heard as he noticed the weight in his arms were gone. He looked in the apartment to see the books on the coffee table and the bag. Sans, one of the occupants. Why do you have books anyway? What the hell did you do after we left the park? How come you didn't offer me tomatoes when you first got here? Sasuke asked his questions between bites, only for his last question to contain some anger. Ugh, don't make me remember. Naruto said, plopping himself on the couch. And plus my clone just returned with the offerings. He said into one of the pillows on the couch. You know I can find out any time, right? Sasuke said with a smirk as his eyes flashed red for a quick second. He waited only to have snoring greet his ears. Sasuke gave a deadpan look as he stopped mid-bite to look at his very old teammate. Whatever, he said, grabbing the bag of tomatoes and leaving the room. The next day. Naruto woke up with a yawn as he rubbed his shaggy hair. He looked down at his pillow to see a large spot of his drool. He looked around before he quickly flipped the pillow and whistled for a couple of seconds. I don't know why you're trying to hide it, I already seen it developing when I finished dinner last night. Naruto heard from behind him. He acted fast and threw the pillow at his roommate. The pillow hit right in Sasuke's face, because he didn't have time to react because of the short distance between them and the total unpredictability of the blonde. The pillow slowly slid off, showing Sasuke's pissed-off face little by little. You better thank Kami that it wasn't on the drool side, though. I mean, I'm still going to kick you ass, he said, punching Naruto on the back of the head. Naruto groaned while rubbing his head. What time is it anyway? I feel like I just finished hibernating. Why are you going to be late for school? Sasuke asked with a smirking chuckle. The blonde shrugged his shoulders. It depends on the time, team. Sasuke glared at the blonde before pointing at the wall clock behind said blonde. 7:34? I don't have school until 9. Naruto said, rising to his feet and stretching, cracking his neck back and popping some of his joints. Man, that couch was uncomfortably comfortable. Sasuke was walking to the kitchen when that was said. So when he heard it, he stopped in his tracks and slowly looked behind him. A look of "what the fuck did you just say" on his face. The whiskered blonde sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. Sorry, that didn't make sense," he said before a feeling hit him and he ran to the bathroom. Sasuke shook his head as the sound of liquid hitting liquid reached his ears. "When are you going to tell me the reason you're going to school?" Sasuke asked from the kitchen. The blonde groaned from the bathroom, but Sasuke didn't know if it was from his activity or if he was saying no. "If you do, I'll make you ramen," Sasuke bribed. Liquid upon liquid was halted and silence followed. Then the bathroom door opened and not soon after that the kitchen door. There Naruto stood with a frown and a pointed finger. "You can't cook ramen to save your life. Instant doesn't count, and you know it," Naruto added when Sasuke was about to talk. Sasuke glared at the blonde, his Sharingan activated in his anger. "You know, we're going to have to properly test this new energy. Because if I know you, and I know you, you're going to have some trouble controlling it," the raven-haired teen said with a smirk. Naruto matched his glare with one of his own, as his own eyes flashed crimson. "You and I both know we simply can't fight just anywhere. This world is completely domesticated compared to our unruly world. If anyone sees our power, mass panic is surely guaranteed to happen." Sasuke didn't let his smirk fade from his face. "Which is why we'll find an uninhabited place to spar. Somewhere far away from this town, preferably a desert." This was Naruto's turn to smirk. "Thanks to the geography book I read in the library yesterday, I know just the place," he said, patting himself on the back. Sasuke chuckled in indifference. "All right. Let's make it interesting. If I win, you have to tell me how you got into the school and the reason you stayed," Sasuke said, shrugging his shoulders since that was all he could think of at the moment. Naruto smirked. "All right, and if I win, you have to join me at the school. Because I'm not going to lie, it's pretty boring and I am not going to be the only one that has to suffer through boredom in this new place," Naruto said, smirking as his eyes regained their blueness. Sasuke looked on in disagreement, but after a couple of minutes of arguing he relented with crossed arms. "Fine, but you can't send clones to substitute yourself," the Uchiha said, glaring at the blonde. Said blonde only had to frown but secretly wanted to bang his head against the wall because he totally forgot he could make clones. "It's a deal," he said, making a clone as they exited the building. "I'll just have the clone make a Hiraishin seal so we can immediately return," he added, leading the way, heading far west. "Wait, you can use the Hiraishin? You bastard, how come you didn't use it against Madara?" Sasuke growled in anger. Naruto continued hopping from roof to roof. He glanced at Sasuke with a sheepish look. "It never crossed my mind," he admitted, lowering his head. The Uchiha groaned and shook his head. The duo kept silence until they arrived at their location a half-hour later. It was a vast junction between Karakura town and another city. They veered far from the road to refrain from being seen by any individual. As the two stared at each, they finally became aware of the other's attire. "You're really going to wear your school uniform in this spar? Don't you have to wear that in an hour or so?" Sasuke asked with a hand on his head. Naruto looked down at his gray shirt and gray pants and shrugged. "A/N, don't pay attention to the white shirt part from last chapter. I was tripping. We didn't have time to properly prepare for this spar. At least I'm not half naked," he said, pointing at Sasuke's black sweatpants, they being the only thing a part of his attire. "Who cares, let's just keep the techniques small to work on control," Sasuke said, quickly dashing at the blonde. Naruto met him halfway and they begun their fight. Karakura High School. It was 10 minutes before school time and Naruto and Sasuke stood in the classroom. Their spar could have lasted for a few more hours, but the pulling sensation from his clone alerted them of the time. They quickly called a tie and returned home, via Hiraishin seal. With the time being another 20 minutes until the start of school, Naruto told Sasuke of the previous day's adventure after he took a quick shower. During their spar he gave the clone instructions to go buy more uniforms. He was grateful that he used some insight before the fight. His shirt was still out there somewhere. The clone had also bought Sasuke a uniform too, which the Uchiha glared at with complete disdain. "I'm surprised, Naruto. I didn't know you had such a hunk for a friend," one of the girls said, staring at Sasuke, who was in the back of the class with his head rested on the desk. "Yeah, how come he wasn't here yesterday, and why doesn't he socialize like you do?" Michiru added after Mehana. Naruto rubbed the back of his head as he chuckled. "I wouldn't go and call him a hunk. And plus I sorta dragged him here, so he hates me right now. I told him he only has to last for the rest of the year for summer break." Naruto explained. I don't know, he could be your evil twin. You guys are total opposites. Orihime said, switching between the two shinobi. The group lightly laughed at Orihime's silliness, while Sasuke groaned inaudibly. By the window, Ichigo was talking with his friends Kigo and Mizuiro. Sato aka Chad, an extremely tall student with Mexican roots, bid them a greeting. Naturally, Kigo grew pale over his frightening size, but the fear was never serious as Chad was a gentle giant. I still can't believe a car went through your house and nobody was injured, Kigo said with an excited voice. I'm surprised nobody woke up, Mizuiro chimed in. Ichigo himself was too busy with thoughts of the previous night's events to listen. It's still unbelievable that no one can recall what happened. I'm sure that Karen should have memory of the hollow attack, but she doesn't remember a thing. Ichigo was busy thinking. Are you Kurosaki Ichigo? Hi, I'm Rukia Kachiki, I'll be sitting next to you for now. A girl said, shocking Ichigo to his core. He was about to completely freak out when she showed him her palm. In marker it read, reveal who I am and I'll kill you. He grew pale and was surprised the others didn't notice. Naruto smiled and laughed in his group, but he also was keeping an eye on the new raven-haired girl, partially positive that she was the same person he seen yesterday. Something is different about her, he mused, noticing the teacher enter the class and school started. During the lessons, Naruto, Sasuke, and Ichigo were weary of Rukia for different reasons. Hours passed and Sasuke had to say that he was back in a mist element. He had always excelled at school and it was apparent that Naruto had gotten better as well. Things have changed, he thought, staring at the blonde's back. Naruto was getting anxious. A few minutes later, and he would get some more of Orihime's delicious cooking. He felt the sensation of somebody staring at him, and looked behind him to see Sasuke 2 rows behind and diagonal from him. He smiled and the Uchiha's frown. The two shinobi locked eyes and Sasuke's own flickered toward Rukia. Suddenly Naruto felt a slight flick on his forehead. He glared at Tatsuki, who was glaring back at him. What did I do? He whispered at her. She was sitting behind him, and she flicked him again. You're in my personal space, she said, flicking him a 3rd time. Naruto finally pulled back his head with a feigned look of irritation on his face. Ouch, stop doing that, he said before the bell sounded throughout the school. Yay, lunchtime. What did you bring today, Orihime-chan? He asked his fellow student. At that moment she pulled out a very long sandwich. Just this. I call it the Yumwich, she said, full of pride at her masterpiece. The sandwich looked like any ordinary Subway sandwich. Naruto's mouth watered as he stared at the work of art. He watched as she slowly broke off a piece, handed it to him. Here, try it, she offered, enjoying the attention. Naruto bit into the meat and bread combo and moaned in pleasure. Though it tasted like any other sandwich, there was something special in it that he couldn't exactly pinpoint. He swallowed it, saddened that it was gone so soon. Sasuke, you have got to try this. One of the best sandwiches ever constructed. He praised the sandwich at his friend. The dark-eyed boy stared at the foot-long from across the room. He grunted in disagreement and put his head down. Come on, Sasuke, you know you want to. I know you're hungry over there, Naruto added with a smirk as the girls giggled at hearing his stomach growl. Sasuke let out a long sigh as he rose from his feet. Fine, I'll taste the sandwich, he said as he noticed that Rukia was currently dragging Ichigo out of the room. He rose an eyebrow at the weirdness and kept his senses open for any unusual activity. He accepted the piece given to him and silently ate it. Naruto looked at him apprehensively, waiting for a small hint that suggested that he liked it. See, it's just a regular sandwich. Now I'm going to buy a small lunch somewhere, he said, walking out of the class. Everybody frowned at him. I knew he would like it, Naruto said with a large foxy grin. The girls looked at him in disbelief. What do you mean? It was obvious that the moody bastard didn't love Orihime-chan's delicious sandwich, Chizuru said, wrapping Orihime in a tight hug. Tatsuki then struggled to remove the lesbian from her friend. It was an amusing sight. Naruto smirked and rose a finger as he began talking like a teacher. You see, I know Sasuke so much that it's surprising that we aren't blood brothers. He doesn't like to show outward affections for something he likes. He likes to keep a stoic appearance to everything, like his older brother, who sadly isn't here with us now. But if you're attentive enough, you can spot small, very small, expressions on his face that he can't hide, because it's more instinctual, he said, finishing his speech, loving their wide, incredulous eyes. Now wait, he said, opening his hand and began counting down. When the blonde hit 0, Sasuke walked back into the room. I don't know how to put this, can I have another piece? Sasuke asked with his head down in shame. Naruto put on his smuggest smirk and leaned back in his chair. Told you, he said as a large spike of energy erupted outside and steadily oozed energy. The two shinobi unnoticeably tensed, ready for some hollow killing, but relaxed when they didn't sense any evil. After that, their day went by without any relevant events. The two shinobi just opted to return home, though at different times. Naruto wanted to walk Orihime home. He soon learned that she lived not very far from where he and Sasuke's apartment was. But Tatsuki lived in their complex, as Sasuke learned when they walked home, their obvious common issue being martial arts. It was weird, but Naruto sensed some feelings developing in Sasuke. Maybe coming to this world was better than he realized. The monsters gave him an occasional dose of adrenaline. It was too bad he could never just run at it and kill it himself. They always seem to disappear a few minutes after appearing. They'll appear again a couple minutes later, but then they'll completely vanish. In the back of his mind, he knew it had to do something with Ichigo and Rukia, but he didn't have any proof. Maybe Sasuke knew what was happening. "Alright, bye Naruto-kun, thank you for walking me home," Orihime said, giving him a quick bow before she quickly ran up her steps. Naruto stood amazed as she gracefully bounded up the steps in her skirted uniform. A blush was adorning his face as he began his journey home. A meow sounded near him, and he looked down to see a black cat mewing near his legs. "Hey kitty, you want some milk?" he asked the cat as it tilted its head to the side and mewed again. "I'll take that as a yes." He laughed. "Follow me," he said as he began jogging to his shared apartment with the cat running behind him. Naruto bounded up his staircase, taking 2 stairs at a time. He slowed to a walk as he passed his neighbors' doors, before reaching his own. "Here's my house, apartment 18. He spoke to the cat, happy that the cat answered back with a meow. He reached into his pocket for the key and silently cursed when he remembered that Sasuke didn't have a copy made for him. Change of plans, kitty, we'll be going through the window. Here, hop on my shoulder," he said, bending down so the cat could jump onto his shoulder, where it wrapped its tail around the blonde's neck. He rose, really amazed. "Wow, you're the smartest cat I've ever encountered," he said, not noticing the cat puff out its chest in pride, because he was having faint memories about the fire daimyo's wife's cat, who only knew how to evade danger. He exited his apartment building and searched for his apartment's window. Stupid Sasuke not being in the apartment, he mused, feeling Sasuke's signature in some other apartment. Always thinking about fighting, Naruto added as he looked around. Not seeing any people, he glanced at the cat. "Hold on," he said, jumping towards his open window, thankful that they left it open. He gracefully glided through the window and landed on Sasuke's bed. I didn't know this was Sasuke's window," Naruto mused as he grew pale and immediately jumped off the bed. "Oh, if Sasuke finds out I was on his bed, with my shoes on no less, he'll kill me," Naruto said, promptly removing himself from the room right after he wiped off the wrinkled bed. The blonde went to the kitchen and opened the fridge. "Ah, here goes your precious milk. Now kitty, you have to promise me you won't tell Sasuke I was in his room, okay?" he asked the cat. The cat seemed to be ignoring him in favor of licking its paw. "I'll take that as an okay," Naruto said, grabbing a medium-sized saucer and filling it with milk. He watched the cat hop off his shoulder and start lapping at the milk. It was at that moment that Sasuke walked through the door. He and the blonde locked eyes for a quick second. "Oh hey, I thought you'll still be Orihime. How did you get in here without a key?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. Naruto scoffed as he rose to his full height. "I'm insulted, I mean seriously. I was a leader of an entire village of shinobi. Getting into this apartment was effortless," Naruto said, unzipping his uniform shirt and removing it. Now the blonde was wearing a plain white shirt. He then put his fingers in the classic cross seal and summoned a clone. "Now I'm going to shower. You do my homework, and no complaining," Naruto grumbled as he briskly walked away. "Drama queen," Sasuke muttered as he sighed and looked at his counter to see a cat staring at him. The two looked at each other until the sound of the shower starting filled the apartment. "Loser, where'd this cat come from?" Sasuke yelled through the rush of the steaming water. "I found her outside on my way home from Orihime's apartment building. She's a very smart cat," Naruto added. "You checked its gender?" Sasuke asked with disbelief. "No, I didn't check its gender," was Naruto's reply. "Then how do you know it's a she?" Sasuke could hear Naruto sigh as he sat at his counter, his eyes still on the cat. "I have a feeling. Now can I take a shower in peace?" "Yeah, whatever, don't use all the hot water," Sasuke said, hearing Naruto's grunt in reply. "So you're a smart cat?" he asked the cat and received a mew in reply. Sasuke stared intensely at the feline, looking for anything of worth. Nothing interesting popped out at him in the 5 minutes he spent staring at it. He rose his head and looked at the towel-wrapped blonde. "Are you sure this cat is smart? It's done nothing but stare at me for the past 5 minutes." The blonde looked over the shoulder of his blonde to make sure it was doing its job before he looked at Sasuke. From the sound of it, you've been looking at it for the past 5 minutes. So are you saying you're not smart? Naruto snickered as sped to his room before a plastic cup could hit him. You're lucky that was plastic. Naruto yelled from his room. Whatever. Sasuke scoffed as he got ready for his shower, leaving the cat on the counter to lick itself. Ichigo's house. Ichigo entered his house with a heavy sigh leaving his lips. Hey Ichigo and you're just in time for dinner. Yuzu said, happy to see her brother. Ichigo looked at his sisters in the kitchen and gave them a small smile. Hey you two, how was your day? Ichigo said with a newfound respect for life, when it concerns his family. Karen narrowed her eyes for a second at the weird behavior exhibiting from her brother. She shrugged after a few seconds and said her day was like any other. Yuzu didn't have any kind of resistance, and told her brother about the chores she did, which was basically the only thing she did after returning from school. Where's Dad? Ichigo asked, just realizing that he didn't get a surprise sucker punch from his father. The answer to his question came in the form of Isshin appearing behind him and putting him in a headlock. Here I am, Ichigo. I'm surprised you dropped your guard. What did I tell you about Chat? Isshin said, yelling the last part as Ichigo threw him at the wall before he stormed up the stairs, his appetite gone. Minutes later, Ichigo laid in his bed completely oblivious to his surroundings. He was just mindlessly staring at the ceiling while thinking of what happened today with the hollow attacking the little ghost boy. He remembered the declaration he made about only fulfilling his duty as a substitute Shinigami, not because he had to but because he wanted to. He couldn't sit back and do nothing while an innocent soul was in danger. He wasn't built like that. He went to sleep thankful that the next day was Saturday. The next day. The morning flew by without problems. Naruto was resting on the couch reading a book while the cat slept on the armrest behind his head. Sasuke was out with Tatsuki at the dojo, where the blonde was sure that Sasuke was humiliating the group of civilian fighters. Naruto yawned as he felt and heard his stomach growl. With that interruption, the blonde marked his page by folding the corner and closing the book shut, with an unnecessarily loud clap. The blonde looked up over his bangs and saw the black cat staring hauntingly at him, as if asking him why he did that. The whiskered blonde just grinned at it. It's lunchtime, Naruto said as if he understood its unasked question. He rose with a stretch and a loud yawn, watching as the feline did the same. He walked to the kitchen and retrieved the fish-themed cat food and poured the meal in a medium-sized bowl, along with a saucer of milk. Now that you're accommodated, I'm on the road for my sustenance, Naruto said, walking to his room for a change of clothes as he was still wearing his sleeping attire. That, and he had put his book on his bed. A few moments later he exited wearing a pair of plain black jeans and a black shirt with a design of an orange dragon going from the bottom of the shirt, and wrapping around it twice, and had its head going over the blonde's left shoulder. When his clone seen it in the store, he lit up in excitement, loving the brightness of the orange it displayed. Maybe he didn't fully get rid of his love for the color after all. On his feet was a pair of black sneakers that went perfectly with his current attire. He looked down at his chest and gingerly lifted the necklace Tsunade had given him years ago. He smiled thinking about his predecessor and tucked the piece of memory in his shirt. He looked around the house and lifted an eyebrow at not seeing the cat anywhere. He shrugged and left the residence. A half hour of blindly walking around the city looking for a suitable place to eat was starting to grate on his nerves. Mostly because he was so bored. His eyes lit up when he noticed Orihime walking in front of him, waiting at a crosswalk. He quickened his walk and lightly tapped her shoulder, causing her to slightly jump. "Oh Naruto-kun, konnichiwa," she said with a bright smile as she gave a short bow. She was wearing a long and colorful dress. The top of it was purple whilst the bottom half was a mixture of orange, yellow, and other light colors. "The same to you, Orihime-chan," Naruto said, giving her a bow in return. "So what are you doing this wonderful Saturday?" the blonde said with a large smile never leaving his face. She smiled in return and giggled a little. "I'm just walking around, enjoying the warmth the sun brings me," she said as the light turned green. They started walking across the street with Naruto looking amazed at how she didn't have an agenda. "So you're just wandering around aimlessly? Well, how about I change that?" Naruto said, loving the confused look she gave him. "What do you mean, Naruto-kun?" The blonde kept his eyes on her the entire time they were walking, never having his pupils deviate from her face. "I was just on my way to find a place to eat. Maybe you would want to join me?" he said, growing flustered as he rubbed the back of his head. "Sure, I'll join you. Now that you've brought it up, I'm pretty hungry," she said, quickly grabbing his hand and practically dragging him into a nearby sushi bar. There they talked about tons of things, in which some they shared a common interest. equals Karakura number 1 dojo equals. Sasuke stood off to the side of the rural Japan looking room. He was dressed in a white karate outfit along with the 16 others, both male and female. The lone Uchiha had the pleasure of sparring with about a dozen of them. Some of them were competent fighters for civilians, but against an elite such as him, poor. But Tatsuki, though she had the same training as them, her ferocity in sparring was acceptable in his eyes. If she had chakra and knew the right ways to use it, she'll be as strong as any Chunin, or even Jonin in Oto. He looked in the center of the room where said girl was busy sparring against some taller dark-haired guy. She was so graceful the way she dodged and struck punches. He was half tempted to activate his bloodline just to record this forever. He was about to give it a go before he felt a tap on his shoulder. There to his left was most, if not, all of the students along with the sensei. They were bowing quickly, completing 10 falls and rises in 5 quick seconds. All of us will be honored if you join this dojo and participate in the fighting tournament next month, the light brown-haired sensei said. Sasuke looked at the middle-aged man with the edges of his lips twitching up in a smile. That's a tempting offer, but I would have nothing to gain from doing such a thing, he said as a shriek nearly ruptured his, and everyone else's, eardrums. Nothing to gain, Tatsuki said, stomping towards the Uchiha with fire erupting behind her and in her eyes. There's so much to gain by being in this tournament. It's not just a city thing, no, this tournament will judge the skills of all the strongest fighters in the entire country. The winner will get the acknowledgement of his peers and won the prestigious trophy in the country. And in the coming month I will rise above all and become the strongest female fighter in the country. The passionate monologue left her panting to catch her breath. Also, by the time she was finished, she had the front of Sasuke's shirt in her hand as she was frantically shaking him. By the end of her speech, her audience shed tears of recognition as well as amazement for her ardent speech. But Sasuke was the one that was most moved, judging from the swirls that substituted his eyes. Her frantic shaking had left him dazed for the moment. He felt lightheaded as he calmed his senses, barely able to recognize the strength every woman gets when angry. You misunderstand what I was insinuating, Tatsuki-chan. I'm trying to say that I already know I'm the strongest. I'll hate to admit it though, but there is one person that's my equal in strength, he said as he found himself babbling. He shook his head to prevent himself from talking any further. Never mind what I said. Sure, I'll join the dojo and enter the tournament. I'm sure after you'll be getting a lot of students, Sasuke said, standing to his feet. He took Tatsuki's hand, surprising her as she was led to the middle of the room. Now let's get you into tip-top shape. After I'm finished with you, you'll start feeling sorry for the other female contestants. Who knows, maybe next year they'll let you compete with the boys, Sasuke said as he dropped into an expert taijutsu form his clan was known to use. Equals with the substitute Shinigami equals. The day was bright, and the sun was at its highest in the sky. Ichigo was pleased that such a day wasn't accompanied by Hollow, as of yet. The absence of Hollow allowed him and Rukia a short, but much-needed break. Even though it was only his second day for being the substitute Shinigami, he had already killed 2 Hollows. The orange-haired teen was wearing a white and blue shirt that had a skull in the middle, surrounded by blue fire. His pants being dark blue in color, whilst Rukia was wearing a matching white and blue dress. Don't get too comfortable, Ichigo. We both know a Hollow could appear and will appear at any moment, Rukia said, ruining his mood. Now a sour look was gracing Ichigo's face, like any other day. He sighed as he thought about what he wanted to do for the day. He couldn't think of anything, so he just continued to wander around the city, while also giving Rukia a human tour. One thing he noticed about the short girl was that when she was caught off guard she was blunt, not that anybody noticed. They had encountered 2 of their classmates earlier, and when approached Rukia just asked who the hell they were. Luckily Ichigo was able to distract them enough so that they didn't hear it. By that time they both heard a loud crash nearby. Up ahead a foot or 2 in the street was the new blonde guy and Orihime on the floor. Immediately he ran towards the scene. He slightly gasped when he noticed that Naruto was protectively wrapping Orihime in a hug and possibly took the brunt of the attack. The attacking car was nowhere in sight, only a pair of skidded tire tracks showed that it was here. That and a pile of various vegetables littered the floor. Are you two alright? Ichigo asked as the 2 slowly rose to their feet. And like he thought, Orihime was without a scratch, whilst, strangely, neither was Naruto. Yeah, Ichigo-kun, I'm alright. It was just a little bump, she said, comically tapping her skull before she bowed to Naruto. Arigato to Naruto-kun for protecting me. The blonde had been deep in thought until he shook his head. He rubbed the back of his head and chuckled. It was nothing, Orihime-chan. It was just a little bump. It wasn't anything like Jiraiya's Rasengan or Tsunade-bachan's punches. He thought, content with the contrast. Orihime then noticed something about her surroundings. Rukia-san? She muttered before her demeanor brightened and she bowed. Hello, Rukia-san, she said, bowing to her fellow female. Who the hell are you? She said before she was quickly hushed by Ichigo. That's Inoue, our classmate, he said with an angry whisper. Oh, Inoue-chan, how are you? Rukia said as her character completely did a 180 as she bowed. It was with that bow that she noticed something around her ankle. It was a mark, as if someone or something had grabbed her. What's that on your leg? She asked, crouching to get a better look. Meanwhile, Naruto had went back into deep thought, and luckily he heard all that was said. And so he looked down at Orihime's bruise. A flash of recognition erupted in his mind as things became clear. He didn't voice his thoughts, he just stood there. Ichigo had been watching Naruto from the corner of his eyes, but he just couldn't get anything from the shinobi. Naruto felt eyes on him and quickly glanced at Ichigo. They met eye to eye, and that contact showed Ichigo something he didn't think he'll ever see. It was like a very large spectral fox stood just a little behind him, and 9 large tails stood poised behind it. The face of the fox was menacing and showed full rows of extremely sharp teeth as it roared at him. He shuddered from the contact and promptly looked at the floor. The blonde inwardly smirked, as that little showing of his power through eye contact might have been too much. It was just a bit of directional ki, but instead of it being outward for a lot of people could feel, it was inward, so only one person will feel just a bit of his power. That person was the one he was looking at. He didn't use that kind of technique before the fusion of him and the QB. Now all I have to do is wait for when he starts following me around to spy on me, he thought. It was so simple that he mentally slapped himself for no realizing sooner. Whatever this Rukia chick was, she somehow gave that power to Ichigo, and now here we are. Whatever it was, it had something to do with the dead and the monsters he had been sensing before they disappeared. Now back to reality. Let's go, Naruto-kun, we have to head back to the store and get more food for tonight, she said, quickly grabbing his hand again and dragging him away. Some odd hours later. The sun had left the sky, only to be replaced by the moon. The luminescent glow provided everyone with calmness and marked the end of the day. Everyone started turning themselves into the night, awaiting the moment when they can ascend to dreamland and rest their bodies. Naruto was not one of these people. He and Orihime were at the latter's house, awaiting their guest, that was Tatsuki. Orihime had explained that every Saturday, the two would meet at her house and they would have dinner together. Since Orihime didn't have any family to care for her after her brother died 6 years prior to the present. She was 9 then. Naruto felt saddened by the story, as Orihime had family and lost it. She and Sasuke shared that in common. But Naruto smiled softly when he heard the girl talk about her brother, and how he cared about her more than anything. Sora sounds like the best brother in the world, Naruto whispered softly, as he had often longed for the feeling of family, true blood family. Orihime smiled sadly as she thought about her late brother. Yeah, he was the best, she said, looking at Naruto and seeing his sad face. She didn't know why he was sad, but she felt bad that she might have been the cause. It's okay now, Naruto-kun, don't be sad. Here, have some sweet rolls, she said, quickly running to her kitchen in the small apartment and giving Naruto a sweet roll back in the living room. The whiskered blonde thanked her and took a bite and reveled in the sweetness. Naruto-kun, can I ask you a question? Orihime asked, a bit flustered as she couldn't look him in the eye. The blonde smiled. Well, you just did, but go ahead, he said, giving her a large foxy smile. She rose a shaky finger at his face. See, can I touch your whiskers? She asked shyly with a blush on her face. Naruto blushed deep red as he knew exactly what will happen when his whiskers were touched. The blonde found himself in a lose-lose situation. If he let her rub his whiskers, he might do something that jeopardizes their friendship. But if he refused, she might get sad, since it was obvious that she wanted to do this since seeing them a couple days ago. Sighing in defeat, he nodded his head and awaited the sensational assault. A soft hand caressed his whiskered cheek. The blonde moaned inaudibly as her fingers went the entire length of his whisker. He couldn't control himself when he leaned forward enough to quickly plant his lips against hers in a chaste kiss. It was at that moment that the door opened and both Tatsuki and Sasuke walked into the residence. They both gasped in shock at seeing the two kissing. Surprise was in the air at Orihime's apartment. The two bubbly individuals had been caught in a spontaneous kiss. The blonde and Sasuke sat in the living room with the former having his head down. Sasuke stared at his once former teammate with a raised eyebrow. So you let your primal instinct loose for a brief moment? He said, as both a question and a statement. Naruto rose his head a little and looked at Sasuke through a single eye and nodding his head. The eye color had remained blue, but the pupil had become a slit due to the animalistic instincts that overcame him a few moments ago. It was a side effect of merging with the QB. A side effect he hadn't mastered control over as of yet. Sasuke rested his chin on his hand while his elbow rested on his knee. A finger began lightly scratching his chin as he pondered the situation. Let me get this straight. I need to understand this. If a girl rubs your whiskers, which I thought were just marks, but with the fusion of you and your beast, have become real, you give in to your animalistic lust? Am I right? Sasuke asked in a whispered hush. Again Naruto nodded, slightly showing his darker and feral whiskers. Alright, now you need to change back to normal, because this is ridiculous, Sasuke said, crossing his arms after he slapped the blonde in the back of the head. Naruto knew Sasuke was fed up with his shameful behavior, as it was alien to both of them. He quickly looked up with his eyes changing to crimson. Touch me again and I'll rip off your arm, Naruto said in a deep growl. Sasuke smirked at the emotional blonde. Activating his Sharingan, he stared down the blonde fox demon. I would love to see you try, he said as the tension became thick with their Ryatsu, spiritual pressure, clashing together. They stayed like that for a few more seconds before they quit. Naruto took a deep breath and his features returned to normal. He was still frustrated, but he felt controlled now. Sasuke deactivated his bloodline as a bead of sweat escaped the trenches of his brow. You alright now? Sasuke asked, running a hand through his hair. Naruto nodded his head for the third time in just a few minutes. I'm good. How about Orihime? How is she? He asked with worry dripping from his voice, only to receive a shrug in response. CD. Tatsuki stared at her friend, who was too shocked by the previous event to speak. They were sitting on her bed with their legs crossed, Indian style. At first Tatsuki had been shocked at seeing Naruto, their friend for only a few days, touching his lips against the friend she had for years. Second came anger. She was prevented from unleashing said anger on the blonde, thanks to Sasuke, who held her back. After that she led her friend into her room, where she tried to comfort her, but it was all for naught, because Orihime was too busy staring off into space with her face completely red. Her heartbeat had yet to slow its beats, and her lips had yet to stop its quivering. Tatsuki had tried everything in the past 5 minutes to awaken Orihime from her daydream. From light taps to the face, poking of the forehead, and even pinching her cheeks. But none of them worked. The dark-haired martial artist was becoming frustrated with the love-struck behavior. So with her last resort being the most obvious direction, she grabbed a nearby pillow and threw it at Orihime's face. The force of the throw was enough to tip the girl over onto her back and awaken her from her daydream. Itai, she said under the feathery weight of the pillow. She sat up and said pillow dropped into her lap. Why did you do T-oh, where am I? She said, not noticing she was in her own room. A tick mark grew on the corner of Tatsuki's forehead as she stared at Orihime in disbelief and evident frustration. She sighed, slapping her face and slowly dragging it down. Orihime, don't you remember anything? Orihime rose a finger and comically touched her chin with it. She grunted in thought. Oh yeah, Naruto-kun kissed me. My first kiss, she said, slowing her speech as she renewed her daydreaming. Tatsuki shook Orihime until she stopped daydreaming. How did it happen? She asked, wanting to know the details. With that question asked, Orihime told Tatsuki about what had happened from the beginning of the day, which was unnecessary, in Tatsuki's opinion. But hearing about how close she was to being hit by a car, and how Naruto had instead got hit by the car, this made Tatsuki a little grateful and confused about how the blonde wasn't in the hospital. But the story didn't stop there. When it got to the more recent events, Tatsuki rose an eyebrow. You touched his whisker marks? Wait, they felt real? She asked in incredulity, her voice rising slightly. The big-breasted girl nodded her head in agreement. They were so soft, but his lips felt softer, she said, softly touching her lips. But I thought you liked Ichigo? Tatsuki said, as she had always had a slight feeling that Ichigo was the center of her affections. Who? Orihime muttered with a soft voice as she was still thinking about the chaste and yet magical kiss. Whatever, Tatsuki grunted, giving up. Let's just go eat. Hopefully nothing else happens tonight, she said, leaving the room. CD. By the time the girls exited the room, the boys were busy playing a game of tic-tac-toe in their boredom. They looked up in unison. When Naruto and Orihime locked eye contact, they immediately looked away with a blush. Sasuke sighed as he marked the last X of the game, etching a straight line through the paper. Game. Can we eat now? Sasuke said, looking at Orihime as his stomach growled. She smiled with a nod as she passed out some food that was spicy hot. Throughout the meal, talks erupted between the four of them. Talks between Tatsuki and Sasuke, Naruto and Sasuke, Tatsuki and Orihime, Orihime and Sasuke, and even Tatsuki and Naruto, but never Orihime and Naruto. They were too embarrassed about what transpired. Like seriously, what were they doing? Naruto knew this was going to happen. If only he had somebody to talk to in his mind, like he used to in his youth. Kyuubi was like his father and best friend, as he was always there to guide him. But now he wasn't here. He would have probably told him that he had hit the jackpot with this one though, that damn pervert. Kurosaki Clinic equals. Ichigo was sitting on his bed with his legs crossed reading a book. A knock on his door interrupted his concentration of the storyline. Ichigo, do you know where my pajamas are? Yuzu said, opening his door. The orange-haired teen looked confused by the question and immediately went on the defensive. How should I know? Why do you always come to me with questions like that? He said, causing her to pout. Wow, Ichigo, ever since you got into high school, you've become such a meanie, she said through her pout. No, I haven't, Ichigo said, denying the fact. Now that I think of it, one of my dresses disappeared too, she said with a finger to her chin. Geez, go bother Karen, he said, staring hauntingly at his beige-haired sister. Fine, meanie, she said, sticking out her tongue and closing his door. Ichigo sighed as he laid back on his bed. Why is she always bothering me with menial things? Ichigo asked himself as he heard beeping. He rose and looked around in puzzlement. What is that? He said, looked around his room. Suddenly his closet door slid open, showing Rukia putting on her strange red glove with the white skull surrounded by light blue fire. What the hell are you doing in there? Are those Yuzu's pajamas? He asked as she dashed at him. We've got orders, she said, quickly removing his Shinigami soul from the now useless body. It was just in time too, because a monstrous arm emerged from the wall that was previously behind him. The swipe it made missed by a hair's length. The hollow balanced its weight on Ichigo's bed as its upper body came into view, creepy mask and all. Ichigo could do nothing except look in surprise as all the weight the hollow put on the bed shattered it inward. My bed, he yelled, seeing his destroyed bed. You have to destroy its mask, Rukia instructed from the sidelines. Ichigo jumped in the air of his room as he unsheathed his body-length Zanpakuto. I know, he said as he sliced a long groove in his roof. When the blade impacted the hard mask of the beast, it did nothing but slightly crack it. Damn too shallow, he heard from behind him. At that moment a crack appeared on the mask and Ichigo took that opportunity to go for another strike. So pulling back his Zanpakuto, he sliced sideways. The strike removed a chunk of the mask, revealing a face he remembered from his youth. This shocked him as he froze, allowing the rampaging monster to thrash around his room, before retreating through a darkened void. It's getting away, Rukia said as she turned to run, but was stopped when she realized that Ichigo wasn't moving. Something's not right here, he said softly as his voice trembled along with his body. I got a look at that thing's face and it was Orihime's dead brother, he said, turning to face Rukia, who didn't seem skeptical about the accusation. Are you sure? She asked with a straight face. Before she started revealing the tactic Soul Reapers use when confronting Hollows. Not only so that they keep their injuries to a minimum, but to also keep them from learning of the Hollow's previous identity. CD. It was 30 minutes after the meal ended. Naruto leaned back, patting his stomach. Dang, Tatsuki-chan, I didn't know your mother's beef stew was that delicious, he praised, smiling at the dark-haired female. Tatsuki smiled and nodded. I know it's delicious. If it wasn't for us, Orihime here would always be eating strange things, she said, laughing at her friend's embarrassed face. Thank you for the meal, Tatsuki-chan, Orihime-chan, Sasuke said, thanking the two females. That was the best beef and potatoes I've had in a long time, he admitted, thinking about when his mother made it for him and Itachi in their youth, when everything was so simple. Naruto glanced at Orihime to see her averting her gaze from him. I have to apologize now, he said, taking a deep sigh. Ori, he started to say before the room shook, as if a giant was taking a thunderous step outside. He and Sasuke tensed as a cobra-like monster entered the room through a black void. Naruto looked at Sasuke. The look they shared was all they needed to have to communicate. Handle the girls, was comprehended towards Sasuke. The monster was quick as it appeared in front of Tatsuki and soon knocked her against the wall. What is that? She asked with dark eyes as she noticed a shimmer in front of her. She then noticed her arm was bleeding. Again she was hit. This time, she slid along the wall. Orihime was the same, as she could only see a shimmer. She was cowering in the corner, as she stared at the cobra-like monster in fear. What is that thing and why did it attack Tatsuki? she asked as she noticed a chain stuck to her chest and it connected to another person. Her real body was currently on the floor passed out, and now her spirit body was now conscious. That's when Naruto and Sasuke noticed a second Orihime appear with a chain linking her together with another passed out Orihime. A clone? Sasuke asked, vanishing until he appeared in front of Orihime and vanished again, dodging the monster's attack. He laid her down next to the wide-eyed Tatsuki. He stared at her, throwing her in a sleeping genjutsu, knowing that the more she seen the more questions she was going to ask. Naruto noticed the monster was still on Tatsuki and quickly used his power to kick it against the wall. It used that momentum to retreat into its black void. Sasuke looked at Orihime and was about to put her to sleep as well. He and the blonde noticed a newcomer. It was Ichigo. "What the hell are you wearing, Carrot Top?" Naruto said, pointing a finger at Ichigo. "What the hell, you can see me? I knew there was something freaky about you," Ichigo said, grabbing the hilt of his Zanpakuto. Naruto grew a tick mark as his seal flashed through his right uniform sleeve as his black sword appeared. "What did you say to me? Do you want to fight?" Naruto said, pointing the sheathed blade at Ichigo. "I doubt that giant butter knife could do anything," he added. The shock of seeing his classmate summon a sword out of nowhere was too much for Ichigo, as he turned his head as he observed the room. He seen Sasuke in the corner next to the girls. He also noticed there was two Orihimes with a chain connecting them together. "Rukia, what the hell is that?" he asked as Rukia finally arrived. "It's the chain of fate," she said, noticing the boys. "What the hell is she doing here?" Sasuke said, looking at Rukia as he tried to put everything together. "I know, right? Everything is too weird right now," Naruto said, crossing his arms with his sword parallel with his appendages. He didn't like being ignored, and that was irritating him. "I know we have a lot to talk about later, but can you three focus on the problem right now?" Rukia said as all eyes turned on her. Orihime stared at them in confusion. "What's going on? Why is Ichigo wearing those weird clothes? Why is he carrying such a big sword? What's going on with you two?" she said, directing her last question at Naruto and Sasuke. "The hollow's back," Rukia said sternly as the dark void reappeared with the monster slowly coming out. "Hollow? That's what you call that thing?" Naruto said, pointing at the emerging hollow. "You don't remember me, Orihime? You don't remember the sound of my voice?" It spoke as a large red cobra-like body fully emerged from the void. "How do you know my name?" she asked in fright as she cowered next to her unconscious body. "How does it know her name?" Naruto thought to himself as the monster started rampaging, yelling that it was sad, over and over again. Finally it stopped and thrust its arm at Orihime. It was effectively stopped by Ichigo and his large Zanpakuto. "I thought you were after me?" he yelled as he pushed the large beast off of him, where Sasuke seized the opportunity to dash forward and thrust a lightning-covered hand into the hollow's arm, cutting it off. It roared in pain as it once again retreated through the black void. "I swear if it retreats one more time I'm going to go crazy," Naruto said with a tick mark. "Sasuke, you know damn well to aim high," the blonde berated the Uchiha. It wasn't long before they started bickering at each other over how to fight. Ichigo chose that moment to study Orihime, more like the chain protruding from her chest. "You said that was a chain of fate, just what exactly does that mean?" he said, directing his question at Rukia. "Isn't it obvious? Orihime is a spirit. Orihime is dead." The hollow returned with his arm intact as he slithered at Ichigo. The orange-haired teen was too shocked to react in time. Luckily Sasuke was quick enough to appear in front of the beast and kick it through the window. It also took a huge chunk of the wall with it. He looked at Rukia after landing. "I still don't understand how that thing knows Orihime's name," he said, pointing at the broken wall. "He's my brother," a quiet voice said as Sasuke and Naruto looked at Orihime in surprise. "Are you telling me that thing is Sora-san?" Naruto said in disbelief as he just learned about her brother today. "So when humans die and become souls, they turn into that?" Sasuke asked in disgust and anger. Sasuke wasn't the only one that was angry as Naruto clenched his fist in rage. "That thing's her brother, and he attacked her. I'm going to kill him," he said, running through the wall. "Wait, don't kill him," Naruto heard before he could leap towards the hollow. Unfortunately, that gave it the chance to slap him towards the wall. Fortunately, Naruto perceived this and substituted himself with a nearby pillow. "So you do recognize me, Orihime?" the hollow said, now with a much softer voice. The two shinobi also noticed that the eyes in the mask weren't its previous black with big red dots. Now they actually showed the eyes of Sora the human that was behind the mask. Orihime took a few steps forward, not listening to the protests behind her. "Is it really you, brother?" she asked, still with doubt in her mind. Hi, it is me, Orihime. The hollow surprisingly replied. It can't be, my brother wouldn't do this, she said, covering her mouth in fear. I was lonely, he said as it went on to tell her how sad he was that after a year had passed after his death, she had met Tatsuki. With the newfound friendship, the number of prayers she contributed to her dead brother's spirit started decreasing. In time, after she started high school, they stopped completely. So after you stopped praying altogether, I was so lonely, so lonely, he said as his voice went back to its evil undertone, and its eyes returned to their evil look. He reached to grab Orihime, but Naruto had had enough. Don't you dare lay a finger on Orihime-chan, Naruto said. With a swift slice of his sword he removed its left hand. It roared and moved to retreat again. But in Naruto's rage he dropped a ton of pressure on the beast, as it crashed to the floor. You're not going anywhere. Now just lay there and accept your death, the blonde said, raising his right arm as he prepared to slice through the mask. Wait, Naruto-kun, don't kill him yet, she gasped through the ryatsu he was putting out. They were all lucky that Sasuke was putting his out to cancel the blonde's. Naruto, calm yourself and only aim your energy at the hollow, Sasuke said as he felt the pressure around them disappear. Fortunately, the hollow remained on the floor where it writhed in pain from the pressure on him. Naruto took a deep breath as he shook his head and slowly lowered his arm. He narrowed his eyes at the hollow, previously Orihime's brother, and watched as it stared intently at Orihime. He followed the line of sight and noticed he was looking at Orihime's unique hairpins, in the shape of a six-pronged flower petal. Unfortunately, the hollow started thrashing around again. Orihime belongs to me. I'm going to kill her first, it yelled as it used Naruto's momentary lapsed concentration to break out of the pressure and swiftly slither around the blonde. Quicker than anyone could follow, it snatched Orihime up by her chain and escaped out the giant hole in the wall. The others quickly followed and cut him off. This time, Sasuke unsealed his Kusanagi and cut its entire right arm off, causing it to roar in pain and drop Orihime right into Naruto's arms. Hey, look, Naruto, he's been disarmed, he said, chuckling at his own joke. Everyone's sweat dropped at the joke in the middle of the fight. After setting Orihime on her feet, Naruto smacked his forehead in shame. Oh, Kami, he muttered. He didn't even panic when Sora used that opportunity to whip its tail at Sasuke and smack him down the street. Can I kill him now? This has been a long day, Naruto stated mostly to himself. It wasn't long after he said that he heard a thud of a body hitting the floor. Orihime, are you alright? He yelled, quickly checking her vitals. He shook his head when he remembered she was a spirit, but he could still feel her heart beating. Move aside, I'll heal her with my Kido, Rukia said as her hands glowed over Orihime's body. She's alright, her soul is just now feeling strained from being outside of her body for such a long time, she added, much to Naruto's relief. So it's time to kill him now. Don't worry, I'll help you pass on, Sora-san, Naruto said as he vanished only to appear above the hollow, his sword poised to finish the fight. Time slowed down as the Sora's mask shattered upon seeing his sister on the floor. He knew what was going to happen soon and just accepted it. I love you, Orihime, he whispered before time returned to normal and Naruto sliced him from head to toe. Unlike the last time when he killed the hollow, this one disintegrated in a shower of blue light. His final words seemed to have reached Orihime as she whispered her reply. I love you too, Nichan. Naruto sighed deeply as he watched Sasuke walk towards them. This night went down the drain faster than it was supposed to, huh? Sasuke asked, slapping Naruto on his back and sharing a sigh. He had already sealed his sword as they looked at Orihime's wall above them. Yeah, it's been one of those days, huh? The blonde said as he sealed his sword as well, trusting Rukia mostly to handle the girls, since she seemed to be the most educated one among them about these types of things. Hey, did you know our cat disappeared this morning after it had lunch? Naruto asked as small talk as they walked away from the scene. 1 month later, June 10th, It was a month before that incident concerning Orihime's brother. It was strange seeing that she and Tatsuki had no memory of it, but it wasn't surprising. The surprising part was that she had thought a sumo wrestler had flew into her wall. Naruto shook his head as he reached the front Orihime's building, so he could get her ready for the day. It was early in the morning, so he wanted to hang out before they went. Ever since that day a month ago, some weird things have been happening. First, there was this weird bird that Sato brought to school during lunchtime. It was weird and creepy that it could talk, but with the amount of weird things this world had to offer, it was like a 3 on a scale from 1 to 10. Don't get him wrong, things got really eerie after that. It turns out that the bird was Beta Hollow, used to ensnare irregular levels of spiritual energy. He was around Orihime at the time, so he didn't have time to make mincemeat with it. Ichigo handled that problem. That night he had asked Sasuke why he didn't take care of it, but with the blonde's superior detective skills he had found a faint discoloration on Sasuke's neck. He backed off the subject and walked away with a large grin. To this day he doesn't know if Sasuke knows that he and Tatsuki are going out. The blonde shook his head at the confusing thought, and started recalling other events. A week after that Ichigo had got something weird, a substitute soul, so that his body would remain inhabited with a soul. But things turned sour as that soul happened to be rotten in a sense. It had even tried to kiss Orihime and Tatsuki, keyword tried. Twin punches from him and Sasuke stopped him in his tracks. After that they didn't talk to Ichigo for a week, even when he explained that it was another soul. Speaking of Ichigo in that sense, he had tried to befriend the two of them, since they were like him with the ability to see ghosts and fight hollows. Sasuke declined, stating that it was tough enough being friends with Naruto to begin with. Another one was too much for him. The blonde had bristled at the comment and sulked for a minute, but he too declined the friendship, stating that it wasn't going to be easy becoming friends with them because of their upbringings. Ichigo was going to ask more of the subject, but Rukia had stopped him, knowing that a person's past was to be left there. Nothing had happened since that night a week ago, but Ichigo was determined to earn their friendship and have them help him with the hollow infestation that seemed to be growing in number. Which brings us to the present, where Naruto was currently walking up the stairs to Orihime's apartment. It had become routine for him to act as her alarm. Though it was bad for Orihime, as she had become accustomed to relying on Naruto to wake her up. Sometime between when she first got accustomed to him and not relying on the clock, the blonde had slept late, and in turn, she slept late. They didn't get to school until it was lunchtime. After that he apologized to her, and insisted that she return to using her alarm. He'll still go to her house at the same time. But whenever he'll get there, he'll find that she had foregone the clock altogether, and she was already up by the time he got there. So he wasn't surprised when he reached her door. She opened it and quickly. At first seeing the walnut-haired teen in her sleepwear had made him blush profusely. But now, he still blushed, but it wasn't on Hinata's scale. Her sleepwear consisted of a single large shirt that acted as a nightgown. She surprisingly only had a pair of panties on under that. Naruto had learned that after the first week. Finally you got here, your breakfast is getting cold, Orihime said, quickly grabbing Naruto's sleeve and dragging him in the apartment. The blonde was completely caught off guard by the news, and since his footing wasn't right he was sent toppling over Orihime. She was more surprised that he was falling on her. It wasn't long before the two bodies hit the floor. Naruto didn't know what he landed on, but the softness was enough that he didn't want to raise his head. A beating heart came to his senses and he immediately knew what his head was on. With that knowledge he didn't want to raise his head and face Orihime's wrath, so he buried his head further, because these opportunities don't happen often. "Ah, Naruto-kun, your breakfast," Orihime muttered through a deep blush and the awkward moment. Even though her feelings for the blonde had only continued to raise throughout the month, this was a little too much for her. Naruto reluctantly rose his head and looked at Orihime. "Sorry, Hime-chan, but why did you make me breakfast? You've never done that before," Naruto asked as he laid his chin on her left breast, causing her to slightly moan. With that small sound they both blushed, and the blonde quickly got off of her. Hoping that didn't hurt their friendship, he apologized and bowed continuously. It seems they both were oblivious to others' feelings. "So this breakfast?" Naruto asked with a hand rubbing his head as he nervously chuckled. His blush was easily matching hers. After that question Orihime had put the weirdness in the back of her mind and smiled in content. She grabbed his hand and led him to where she had prepared his breakfast. It wasn't anything fancy, just a bowl of cereal. "I thought you said he started, but smacked his head as she giggled. His breakfast was cold, it just wasn't what he was expecting. Inoue looked at him with a smile as she bowed. "Sorry if you wanted something else, but I just woke up. I just wanted to do something special for you, because she stopped herself only to chuckle nervously as she increased the bows. "Because I just love doing nice things, hee," she tittered. They shared a laugh and Naruto ate his cereal as Orihime started dressing in her school uniform. He remembered the first time she had dressed in front of him. Did you know that she didn't wear a bra under that shirt? Neither did he. It was too bad she had his back to him. He soon finished his cereal and waited for Orihime to finish dressing. In the meantime he looked at his hand and channeled some of his spirit energy in a Rasengan. At first whenever he had did this, the swirling ball of energy would be white/silver, but now it was crimson. Sasuke had faced a similar change as now his energy was a deep purple. Speaking of Sasuke, he wasn't at school the previous day. Maybe it had something to do with Itachi's birthday being yesterday. His thoughts turned to the dead brother, and how his life played out, using most of his knowledge based on personal experiences and his secret file. He shrugged when he noticed Orihime exiting her room. "Arigato for the meal, Hime-chan," Naruto said, bowing, making her blush lightly. "Come on, let's meet with Tatsuki-chan and Sasuke-kun," she said, pushing out of her residence so she could lock the door. After that she clung to her arm, pressing his arm between her breasts. Naruto didn't object to the hold as this started about a week ago. On the way to the school they passed his apartment complex, since Orihime's house was the furthest away from their high school. They seen the pair waiting for them. Well, waiting was a strong word as their faces were nearly touching as they seemed to be whispering to each other. Orihime was about to shout to them and wave, but Naruto shushed her and wanted to surprise them. It was too bad that they quickly separated with blushes on their face. Naruto snapped his fingers in disappointment. He then looked at Orihime and noticed it was because she had above-average spiritual energy that overshadowed everyone else's, save for the obvious candidates being him, Sasuke, Ichigo, Rukia, and even Chad and another person in the class whose name escaped him at the moment. The blonde watched as she briskly walked to Tatsuki and they started chatting, leaving the boys behind. Soon the two males matched each other's pace as they followed the girls. "You feeling okay now?" the blonde asked out of the blue. The dark-eyed teen didn't mind the blonde with a glance. Only instead, opted to stay his gaze at the side of Tatsuki's face as she talked with Orihime. "I don't know what you mean," he muttered. Naruto put his hands in his pocket and chuckled. "Sure you do. I'm not stupid, Sasuke. I know yesterday was Itachi's birthday. You probably wanted to do something for him, even though we're in another universe, like a ceremonial grave somewhere on the outskirts of the city. Am I right?" Naruto said with a smirk as he noticed the flash of surprise in Sasuke's eyes before they were darkened with apathy. Sasuke walked a bit slower as he thought about his once ambition and the fight he had with his brother. His victory at the cost of his brother's life and the story he was told about Itachi's true intentions. Everything had sent him tumbling into a seamlessly never-ending spiral into darkness. Until the blonde here opened his eyes to the light, or more like showed him the right target to focus his anger on. Sasuke clenched his fist as he thought about all of that. He steadily clenched and released until he thought about the old Uchiha's end. The wounds we both gave him were evidently fatal, so survivor would have been futile. He was possibly minutes away from death before he sent us here. Sasuke thought as he looked up at the early morning sky, as the sun had just rubbed the sleep from its eye. "Hey Naruto, what happened with the rent payment yesterday? I'm surprised we didn't get a notice this morning about a possible eviction," Sasuke asked the blonde as the school grounds came into view. With that question asked, the blonde started sweating bullets. This was the wrong reaction as Sasuke narrowed his eyes. "What did you do?" he asked menacingly. Naruto held up his hands defensively. "It was the toughest decision I've ever had to make, Sasuke, you've got to believe me. It was a moment of weakness, but after I did it, I couldn't believe that it worked without repercussions." Naruto started to explain quickly and quietly so passing students didn't hear. "What did you do?" Sasuke said, glaring at the blonde. "I'm not going to ask again." Naruto sighed as it was time to reveal his biggest secret. "Well, one day I got bored and I remembered I had skills others in this universe don't. Skills of a shinobi, so I used it to gain money. It's not like I used the skills to steal a bank or anything, it's much worse in your opinion," Naruto added with a thoughtful expression. Sasuke narrowed his eyes further as he thought about everything he hated. It was a long list. He dug around in his mind trying to find the answer. Meanwhile the blonde wiped his brow in relief. "It's a good thing Sasuke hates a lot of things. I'm free for now," Naruto thought as he jogged ahead as the day begun. A week later. Naruto yawned as he stood on the roof of his apartment. He stood clothed in his Kage's cloak along with his custom cloak over it. Under was the only spare outfit he had from his original universe, sans the armor. Hollows weren't that strong to him, and they never touched him. He just felt like this should be his hollow exterminating gear from now on. Ichigo had his black Shinigami attire, and even Sasuke had his Akatsuki gear. The only thing he didn't have was the Hokage hat. "I missed that thing," the blonde added solemnly as a lone tear dropped down his cheek. Hollow activity had started to slightly raise and that was grating on his nerves. He stupidly gave Ichigo the night off, since he had been acting strange at school today. He was actually smiling the entire day. It threw everything out of whack. Tatsuki had told them that Ichigo wasn't going to come to school the next day, so he felt that he wasn't going to either. He was going to shadow the substitute Soul Reaper around the entire day. He'll have a clone in his place so things wouldn't get suspicious. He had to admit it, he was bored and he felt that Sasuke was getting close to solving his secret. He shrugged as he thought about the outcome. It wouldn't be so bad. "I'll just tell him that it was his fault that I had to do it," Naruto thought, scratching his cheek. It was at that moment that he felt a slight presence of spiritual energy appearing to his left a couple of miles away. "Yash," he mumbled when he surprisingly heard a meow a few feet behind him. It was because of that instead of pushing off of his foot and hopping in the air, He turned like a ballerina to face the black cat before toppling onto his side. Now, as he laid flat on his face, he groaned to the heavens to forgive him for whatever he did. He rose his head and found himself face to face with the cat. If memory serves me, you disappeared about a month ago. Where'd you go? Wait, just because you're smart doesn't mean you can talk, Naruto said, rising to his feet and wiping off the dirt that had accumulated on his attire. Hey, I'll have you know that I take offense to that, a male voice echoed from the cat. Naruto stared at the cat before he shrugged his shoulders. Well, I guess I was wrong, Naruto said as he plopped himself into a seat in front of the cat, totally forgetting about the nearby hollow. The talking cat rose a furry eyebrow. Are you going to freak out or something? It's not every day a talking cat appears, it said as its tail swayed behind it. The blonde shrugged as he rested his chin on his hand. True, but I have seen a talking cat. A bunch of talking cats actually, Naruto said as he thought back to when Sasuke was actually a part of Team 7 and the team had did a mission concerning a bunch of cats and paw prints. That's all he could really remember from that mission. The cat's response was cut off by a loud hollow roar a few yards to the blonde's right. The blonde sighed and with a pointed finger muttered, John, false darkness. With that, a large burst of lightning erupted from his fingertip and blasted through the hollow. Now we can continue talking, you're intriguing, the blonde said, returning his chin to his hand. Just what are you? You're not a Shinigami, that's for sure, the cat said, sitting on its haunches. I can say the same for you, Naruto said, smiling at the feline. Now that I'm thinking about it, you're not an ordinary cat. Said cat looked at him with a straight face. Oh really, what gave that away? It asked with sarcasm, and more sarcasm. Not that I'm saying that you can't just be a cat, you know too much. I don't know if this is correct, but could you possibly be a Shinigami like Rukia Kichiki? It would be the only explanation, Naruto said as something told him that they had the same abilities, with the cat having the vast majority. Rukia looked a little young for a 100-year-old chick. Silence followed as the two looked at each other. Minutes passed by with nary a word spoken. Neither of them moved, not even the cat's tail. The two just stared into each other's eyes. Naruto just sat there examining the cat, mostly wondering if it was thinking of an answer that would possibly fool him. But he knew from the silence already that he was correct to assume that it was a Soul Reaper. Now it was his turn to think of what Shield, as he had said a month ago, will come up with. Minutes passed by faster and faster before a full 20 minutes passed. Still the cat didn't respond. It was thanks to another hollow appearance, this time to Naruto's left, that anybody moved. Again with another John did Naruto destroy it, as that was all that was needed. He didn't feel like using his sword or checking what it looked like, as this seemed more important to him. I guess I can tell you. After all, you did take me into your home, when we first met. You even fed me and even played with me one time. So yes, I am a Soul Reaper. Also, you are correct to say that I was female. It's surprising that you knew that. Even when I hadn't even talked yet, or revealed my true form, the cat said as its tail started swaying again. So you do have a true form. May I see it? The blonde asked, wondering how the transforming will occur. Will a burst of cloud just appear and there she'll be standing, or will it be different? Those kind of questions were flowing through Naruto's mind. No. Now's not the right time, the cat said as it rose on all fours. Now you should handle this latest hollow before it reaches its target. The male speaking and yet female cat said as she could sense the last hollow of the night chasing another spirit. After I destroy it, will you reveal your true form to me? Naruto said as excitement began to fill him. The cat thought about it with a long possibly. It finally said. Yada. I'll be back in a couple of seconds, he said as he shimmered from her sight. The feline had a look of feline surprise on its face. Was that Shrimpa, flash step, it silently thought. It was surprising when 2 seconds later the spiritual signature of the hollow faded from her senses. Then a second later Naruto reappeared in the same shimmering fashion. What I miss? Naruto asked with a large foxy grin as he returned. How is it that you found it so fast? Only those of Lieutenant and up can possibly detect such a faint signature? The blonde heard the manly voice ask him. Lieutenant? Is that a Shinigami rank? What's the strongest? Naruto asked as he created a quick shadow clone. My clone will handle the ones that appear from now on, he added as he, with the cat's permission, scooped her up and vanished to the inside of his room. It was at that point that Naruto suddenly smacked himself on the forehead. Oh Kami, how rude of me, all this time we've been in each other's company and I haven't even asked for your name. What is it? It's Yorichi, the feline plainly said as it hopped onto the nearest pillow and curled up. Her golden eyes were still visible, making it seem like a pair of floating eyes in the dark room. "That's it," Naruto said as he shed his attire. He was curiously about that. The only person he knew that only had one name was Chad, or Sato as he called himself. "So you only have one name like Chad?" Yoruichi rose a furry eyebrow. "What are you talking about? His last name is Yasutora." Now it was Naruto's turn to raise an eyebrow. "Really? I guess I don't be paying attention." Naruto yawned as he finally exited his fighting attire. Now, after putting on a pair of rusted orange sweatpants, he hopped on the bed, making Yoruichi bounce, but otherwise keep her curled form. "I don't know what to make of you or Sasuke. You two are true enigmas in my eyes," Yoruichi said as Naruto's head rested on the pillow next to her. Naruto shook his head, mindful to move slowly. "You're the true enigma," Naruto said as he took a long yawn. "I mean, you have the ability to turn into a cat. Can the other Soul Reapers do that? Can I turn into a fox?" Naruto thought as he never tried. "That'll have to wait until later." Yoruichi quietly licked a paw before she curled back up. "I'll tell you this. Only my clan, the Shihoin clan, had the ability to turn into animals. No other Soul Reaper has that ability. Though one of them is a giant wolf." She mumbled it, but since Naruto is right next to her, he heard it. Naruto nodded as he felt the dreamscape calling his name. "As much as I would love to continue this conversation, I'm getting sleepy. So see you tomorrow, Yoruichi," Naruto said as he didn't even wait for a response, and he was clearly asleep in seconds. June 17th. Naruto yawned as he, decked out in a simple white t-shirt with blue shorts, followed Ichigo and his family via the roofs of the surrounding buildings. He did this until they arrived at the cemetery. Not surprisingly, Rukia showed up mysteriously. Ichigo denied not knowing her, but then said that she was a middle school classmate and dragged her away. He silently followed, shaking his head. Luckily, the tree population in the cemetery was just good enough for him to hide and follow them silently. The day was pretty much boring, and Naruto sometimes left a clone to watch as he dozed off in the treetops. So surprised was he that when the clone dispelled, it showed that there was a Shinigami confronting Rukia. Cursing the clone for not watching itself, and waking up, he shunshined to where Rukia was at. He looked around, wondering why Ichigo would be gone from Rukia for so long. Then the memories of the clone filled him in. "Did you really kill your mother, Ichigo?" Naruto thought as he watched Rukia talk to the straw hat wearing Shinigami. "Are you Amatsukido Stealth Force?" Rukia asked as the man pulled a string in which a flap on top of his straw hit lift that said correct on it, and he sounded out a ding-ding sound repeatedly. Naruto rolled his eyes in the treetops. "So is this guy like a shinobi or something? If he is, I wonder how strong he is," he asked himself as listened to the rest of the conversation. Soon Ichigo returned with Kan in tow. "Rukia, are you alright?" he asked, stopping near the girl. "Who is this Rukia?" he asked, not waiting for a reply. Naruto didn't bother listening to the introduction, on the account that he started digging deep in his ear. He pulled out a bit of earwax and flicked it off of his finger as he watched Ichigo eat Kan's mod pill. He knew by that time he had fully announced himself. "I'm so bored. Ichigo always gets to fight. You know what, no more, I'm getting this action," Naruto thought to himself as he dropped down from the tree in front of the two. "Yo!" He waved in a manner like his old sensei Kakashi. To say the other three, for counting Kan, were surprised was an understatement. "Where'd the hell you come from?" Ichigo said, pointing his large sword at Naruto. Naruto seemed hurt as he stumbled backwards, holding his chest in the process. "Ah, Ichigo, I thought we were friends? How could you say that to me?" "Cut the bullshit. First Rukia, now you, can I ever have a normal day by myself?" Ichigo yelled, grabbing his hair and pulling it in frustration. The blonde waved him off. "Calm down, Ichigo, I was bored so I came down here. Plus I want to fight this guy." Naruto dropping into a stance. "And just who are you?" Saito asked, looking at the blonde. Naruto smiled and got out of his stance to bow. "Naruto Uzumaki, the residential Kage, at your service," he said, not surprised the man disappeared to take advantage of the opening. "Pretty good, taking advantage of my opening. It's too bad it was a feint," Naruto added as he did a roundhouse kick behind him. He was surprised he didn't hit anything. "Ooh, this is going to be interesting," Naruto thought as the man appeared back in the same spot. "You have good reflexes. If you hadn't said anything I would have surely been hit," Saito said with a straight face. "I can say the same for you," Naruto said as a wide grin spread his face. "Let's have some fun," he said, charging at the man. With that comment the man looked surprised and a little wide-eyed. "Crap," he muttered as Naruto punched the ground, causing the ground to cave outward and make a small crater. This continued for a few more seconds before Naruto smirked and vanished before all of their eyes. "Behind you," he said as it was too late before Naruto kicked the man in the side of the head, launching him into the tree line. The man came back with a vengeance with his sword drawn. "Who drawing your sword on an unarmed man? TSK TSK. Naruto mocked as he sidestepped the downward slash and bent backwards for the side slash. He did a handstand backflip and kicked the man's sword out of his hand in the process. Saito grunted and thrust out his arm. "Bakudo number 4, Heinuwa, crawling rope," he said as two spectral yellow lights erupted from his hands. Fortunately, Naruto was already hopping backwards as the yellow lights pursued him. "It's futile to escape, human," Saito cackled as he urged the ropes to pursue faster. Naruto smirked at the comment. "Okay," he said as a clone materialized in front of him, causing it to get caught, thus stopping the technique. He dispelled it and dashed at Saito. Halfway there they heard a beeping from Rukia's soul pager. They stopped fighting and went to check it. "Is a hollow near?" Naruto asked as he brought in his senses. He didn't have to wait long as screams were heard not far away. "Karen! Why use you?" Ichigo yelled as he recognized the screams as he began running as fast as he could to his twin sisters. Everybody quickly followed, even Saito, at a more reserved pace. CD. Naruto took a detour and took to the trees. From there he hopped onto the cliff above Ichigo's sisters. He immediately noticed a very large hollow was on Karen while it had Yuzu in its hand. Its back was to him, so he didn't know exactly where his mask was. Damn it, turn around. He wanted to completely finish off the damn hollow and not allow it to retreat and recover. That, and he didn't want to destroy it while it was holding a screaming Yuzu and stepping on a howling Karen. He didn't have to wait for a distraction as Ichigo made himself known, and after a few minutes of yelling, the hollow dropped Yuzu. After that, Naruto was about to attack it when it retreated and Ichigo followed. So he followed. Now in a clearing, Ichigo and the large hollow began fighting, with the hollow, known as Grand Fisher, a hollow that uses a humanized bait mechanism to kill whoever that can see it, but targeted most women. This enraged Ichigo, and he started blindly swinging his sword in rage. It became clearly apparent that one of its targets had been Ichigo's mother. This even enraged Naruto, but he was stopped from attacking by Saito, who also stopped Rukia. He told them that this was a fight of honor and Ichigo should be the one to finish. Rukia understood as this had happened with her old lieutenant. Naruto didn't know about Rukia's previous experience, but this was similar to Sasuke's own ordeal with Itachi. Equals with Sasuke equals. By that time school was released and Sasuke was in the dojo with Tatsuki. In the process of sparring with Tatsuki, he had been thinking about the blonde's absence from school. Even though he was technically there, the clone didn't really count. What could the loser could be doing? Sasuke thought as he continuously blocked each of Tatsuki's strikes. Come on, come on, come on, Tatsuki chanted as she grew frustrated with each of her blocked attacks. She threw a jab and watched as it was batted away. She swung her other hand, keeping her body in motion as she went for a backhand. Her hand was grabbed and so she kicked backwards with her right leg. Her attack was dodged and her right hand was released. She fully spun around, bringing her left leg in a large horizontal arc, hoping to connect with Sasuke's head. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you see it, Sasuke soon sneezed and Tatsuki's leg flew right over his head. It did hit some of his hair. Sasuke rose his head and rubbed his nose. That's it for now. Take a break, Tatsuki-chan, Sasuke said, running a hand through his hair. What are you talking about? I can still fight. Let's go, get off your ass, Tatsuki said, glaring at the Uchiha, who had taken a seat. Tatsuki, if you really want to learn my fighting style, I expect you to listen to me. Now sit your cute ass here and eat some lunch, Sasuke said, not really paying attention to the words coming out of his mouth. His words caused Tatsuki to blush as she sat next to the Uchiha, grateful for the sandwich that was handed to her. She bit into it ravenously and drank from a bottle of water near her. They ate for the next 2 minutes. After that they rested for 5 minutes. Sasuke rose to his feet. Okay, that's enough rest. Now let's complete the training that will guarantee you complete victory in the tournament next week. He extended his hand to the still-sitting girl. Tatsuki smiled, grateful for the break. She took Sasuke's hand and rose to her feet. CD. Naruto and the others watched as Ichigo renewed his attacks on Grand Fisher after encountering the little remains of his mother's spirit. Naruto shrugged his shoulders when Ichigo gained the upper hand with his renewed resolve. A couple minutes passed and Ichigo had wounded the giant hollow enough that it had to retreat. Soon Ichigo passed out from his injuries he sustained in the battle. Seriously though, if it wasn't for Carrot Top's honor I would have already killed the monster. Naruto thought as he shook his head and walked away. This day was so boring. I should have went to school, he thought again as he arrived where Ichigo's sister were. He could see that they were alive and safe. He was about to turn when he heard something. Hey, aren't you Karen's friend? Naruto Uzumaki, right? The voice of Ichigo's hazel-haired sister Yuzu said from behind him. Naruto focused and he remembered the young 11-year-old twins from when he had run into them from when he was walking around the city, bored out of his mind. He had felt a hollow, but didn't get to kill it, because it had retreated the moment he had sensed it. Luckily Chad and Ichigo's sister, who he learned was named Karen, was alright. Chad had picked up the weird speaking bird and entrusted that he return Karen back home. Naruto shrugged as it gave him something to do. He didn't know where Ichigo's house was, but Karen led him there with instructions. There he met Yuzu and Isshin, who both thanked him for returning Karen. Though Karen was still a little out of it, concerning the spirit inside of the bird. It didn't surprise the blonde because he too could feel the turmoil inside the spirit and wished for its safe journey to the Soul Society. The Kurosaki family seemed like a nice bunch, save for Isshin who seemed a little messed up in the head. But he reminded him of himself, with his childish antics. The dad had invited him to dinner with the family, but he politely declined, in hopes of saving room for dinner at Inoue's house. Back to the present, Naruto smiled and waved at the two. Hey Yuzu, Karen, what are you two doing here? He said, acting ignorant to the reason of their presence. We're here to visit the grave of our late mother, Karen said, showing a half smile half frown. She was sad about the fate of her mother, but happy to see Naruto, who she felt was kind of her friend, considering how he had taken her home a couple weeks ago. Oh, Naruto said dejectedly. So hey, do any of you need help with your homework, or anything? You can always count on me if you need any help, Naruto said, smiling brightly, hoping the change in subject was enough to brighten this darkened day. The two twins' sweat dropped at the request. No, Naruto-san, we don't need help with homework, Yuzu said. The blonde shrugged. Okay, then I guess I'll see you some other time then. Tell your dad I said hey, alright, Naruto said, walking away as the sun was setting. CD. Naruto walked into his apartment to see Yoruichi sitting on the counter staring at him. You finally back from watching Ichigo, huh? The feline said as she sat on her haunches. Yeah. This day was pretty uneventful for me. On the bright side, Carrot Top seems to have finally taken his position seriously, Naruto said as he explained the day to the Shinigami in disguise. That's all fine and dandy, but I've been thinking about something, Yoruichi said, following Naruto into his room, where he deposited his shirt and prepared for a much-needed shower. Naruto let her words hang in the air as he ran the water, turning the hot on full blast. He cleaned himself for the next 10 minutes, he even washed his hair with shampoo. After that he brushed his teeth and exited the steaming bathroom, now aware of Sasuke's presence inside the apartment. Dobe, come in here when you put some clothes on, Naruto heard from the living room. Naruto smiled as he briskly walked into the room. It seems that Sasuke found out how I collected my money, Naruto told Yoruichi, who bounded onto his pillow and watched him put on some sweats. He rubbed his hair vigorously and wrapped the towel around his neck. Yoruichi knew she was getting addicted to seeing Naruto without his shirt on. The blonde had a body that was nigh impossible for a regular school student to get. Starting with his shoulders, they were broad and defined with rippling muscles. Down the chest the muscle proceeded to gain definition and leanness. Then onto his abs, they were about the most pristine set of abs she had ever seen on one so young. The six-pack was just a vision of beauty to her. Down to his waistline she knew that said abs continued with another row of muscle. The biceps, triceps and the forearms were scrumptious to just look at. Not to mention the many tattoos on him, only seemed to heighten his sex appeal. She counted at least 4 different tats. The feline shook its head as it remembered what happened yesterday. She knew there was more to his story. I'll find out, eventually, she told herself as she followed the blonde to the living room. What's up, Sasuke? Naruto said, walking into the dimmed room. Sasuke was no longer wearing his karate outfit, but now was wearing a pair of dark blue pants and a black shirt. How long have I known you for, Naruto? Sasuke said, confusing Naruto with the question. Naruto sat on the opposite couch as Yoruichi sat between them on the floor. The blonde was forced to think of their history. He wasn't going through any details of their shared history. I would say about 7 years, give or take a few months. Why would you ask me such a question now? Naruto said as his eyes scanned his comrade. Sasuke glared at the blonde, knowing he was playing the ignorant fool. He glanced down to see the black cat had returned from its month absence. He paid it little attention and returned his gaze back to Naruto. Yes, I'll say that's about right. So in all our time together, When have you seen me approve of smut? Naruto chuckled and folded his legs. Now Sasuke, how did you turn this entire situation to you? Sasuke opened his mouth to answer, but was cut off. Now I understand how you would hate my idea of getting money, but can you really hate it so much? I know it's smut to you, but to me it's just a means of getting money. Sasuke grew angry and pulled out the familiar orange book. But really, Ika Paradise? You couldn't think of a different way. I would have rather you steal from a bank, that way is at least honorable in its own way, he said, slamming his book on the table, where Yorichi went up to it. Is this really smut? The male voice pierced the room, shocking Sasuke a little at its suddenness. Did that cat just talk? He said, now looking at the cat. At first glance it looked like a normal cat, and the only thing that jumped out at him was the eyes. They pierced through his entire being. Accepting the challenge, his own eyes altered themselves into the three-tomo form. The eyes startled the Shinigami in disguise, and Naruto watched this event in silence. I wonder what Sasuke and his Sharingan are going to see, he thought in wonderment. Minutes passed by without a word from either party. More minutes passed by before it was a total of 30 that Sasuke's Sharingan cancelled, returning his eyes to their obsidian. There is an aura around the cat reminiscent to the aura around Ichigo. Could she be a Shinigami? He asked, looking at Naruto, not seeing any traces of surprise in his cerulean eyes. You knew what this animal was, without telling me, he said with hidden traces of anger in his voice. Don't get angry at him, he had only just found out yesterday, Yorichi said as her tail swayed from side to side. Naruto grinned wide, showing his canines had elongated, but they were always like that. Now Sasuke, I would have thought you already knew this. Not all of us can have the famed Sharingan at our disposal, he said kind of mockingly as he rose to his feet. Now let's drop this topic and resume to the smut, as you call it, he said, putting his hands behind his back. The Sharingan returned full force, its appearance now showing the Manjikyu. Watch what you say, Naruto, he said as Ryatsu started affecting the surrounding area. The evil and maliciousness in the Ryatsu had little to no effect on the blonde. Or what, Sasuke, what are you going to do? I mean, really, what could you possibly be so angry about? Naruto backfired with his own crushing Ryatsu. Though they weren't paying attention, their battling Ryatsu had no effect on Yorichi, though she was surprised at the pressure being put out by these two. Even though it wasn't a lot, their combined Ryatsu easily surpassed all Lieutenant's capabilities. Sasuke fell silent at Naruto's questions. His spiky hair fell around his head, it no longer resembling a duck's ass at that moment. I feel constrained, he said simply. Naruto watched him through cold eyes, forcing the Uchiha to shamefully avert his gaze as he wasn't used to it from the blonde. Naruto stayed silent as he stood waiting for the Uchiha to explain. I feel like I no longer have a purpose. I mean, I have this strength, this incredible strength, but I can't do anything with it. These weak hollows don't put up any kind of fight, and that's pissing me off, he said, now with fire in his black eyes. I know you feel it as well. Don't you feel like you're just suffocating in your own pent-up frustrations? He said as he was now yelling. The urge to match myself up with the strongest of this universe and prove myself the strongest is driving me insane, Sasuke said as his curse seal pulsed as more Ryatsu filled the room, not to mention there was a purple aura outlining Sasuke. This had the effect to make Naruto sweat as Sasuke seemed to be pouring out all he had. His worthlessness, his urges, and his frustration. They were but a fraction of the feelings emitting from the Uchiha. This entire event only worried the blonde as he had never seen the Uchiha so angry before. But his words only struck true within the blonde's heart. Now that it had been brought to light, he had missed his old life. Maybe it was the stifling Ryatsu that was pouring from the Uchiha, but he was beginning to hate his current situation. His entire world had been flipped upside down, he went from the leader of an entire village to common high school student. But no more. With the resolve to back him up, the immediate area around Naruto exploded with the help of Crimson Ryatesu. Immediately the image of a majestic nine-tailed demon fox surrounded him. If there's one thing I learned about from following Ichigo, it's that there's a place called the Soul Society, Naruto said as his voice was being affected by the demonic Riryoku. I've heard that there's more than enough people there to test our prowess on, Naruto said as he calmed his spiritual pressure, before he cancelled it out altogether with Sasuke doing the same. I say we give that place the Shinobi Special, Sasuke said after he had calmed himself. This might be the kind of action he was dreaming of. Yorichi hopped on Naruto's head, distracting him for a moment. Not that I mean to rain on your little parade or anything, but in order to get into the Soul Society, you need to be a spirit, you need to be dead. A week later. Naruto sighed as he waited for Sasuke by his dojo. He was wearing a white shirt and black pants with black and white shoes. His blonde hair had grown a little and was now past his shoulder blade, with the top remaining as spiky as ever, and two short bangs framing the upper section of his face. He and Tatsuki had left with the other karate students to go to the tournament a couple of days ago. School was nearly out, and he was bored. The occasional hollow did nothing to alleviate the tension from a week ago. Which brings him to another topic, Yorichi. He wanted to see her real form, but she's been holding out on him. He remembered how he begged the night before, but it wasn't enough to work. But today is going to be different. Naruto had learned that with his demonic powers he was able to transform into a fox as well. Which, if he thought about it, wasn't really surprising, since it would be embarrassing for the new fox boss if he wasn't even able to transform into a fox. That brings him to the latest of his findings. He could still summon foxes. Since the summoning plane was already transdimensional, the link was still functional between the two. He was just unable to reverse summon himself to his own dimension because there wasn't a single fox summoner there. Naruto dropped from the roof of the dojo, and a small explosion of dust surrounded him as his feet met the dirt road. He looked to his right to see a pair of piercing red-slitted eyes. He smiled as he noticed one of the twins he had recently summoned. "Kizaru-chan, what do you think of the new place?" he asked as a knee-high three-tailed kitsune emerged from the shadow of the alley. Her fur was deep orange, and had small hints of red. More fur surrounded her 4 ankles, and those were colored deep red that matched the tips of her 3 tails. The orange ears on the top of her head twitched constantly from the constant noise of the urban area. "It certainly is crowded," she spoke after a moment, not sure that was the right word. Naruto chuckled as he petted the kitsune. Her true size was only a little bigger than this, but it made no difference to Naruto how big she was. Yeah, it really is. It's so diverse compared to the elemental nations. It makes me glad that I've calmed down in committing pranks, because I would never get caught, Naruto said as a mischievous grin began splitting his face in two as his mind began piecing together multiple antics. Kizaru grinned as she watched Naruto gain an evil gleam in his eyes. "Did you really think you could suppress your need to prank for so long? It's in your blood. Now enlighten us about what's on your mind." Naruto and Kizaru heard from behind the female fox. Behind said fox was another similar colored fox. This one was male, and its voice was filled with mischievous intent. "Hey Kisuke, you came at the perfect time," Naruto said, staring at the male fox's razor-sharp teeth. "I know," he said smugly as he joined the two. "I've got a great idea, but I'm going to need you two to do it. Our target already doesn't like me. And plus it's always essential to have an alibi," Naruto said as he immediately began to tell the two about his ingenious and yet simple plan. Halfway across the city, a man shivered as he sat in his office. 3 hours later. Naruto smiled as he looked at the camera in the movie theater. He made sure that it caught him before and after the movie, for appearance's sake. He looked at his walnut-haired companion that was currently clutching to his right arm and smiled at her. He hadn't really paid attention to the movie as it had been an always choice, but he did enjoy the girl's company. "Thanks for taking me to see the movie, Naruto. I had the best time ever," she said, hugging him tightly. As the tight hug proceeded, the blonde began to lose feeling in his arm, and he was getting unnerved. "No problem, Hime-chan, now can you lighten up? You're cutting off my circulation," Naruto said as Inoue blushed and lessened the hold she had over his arm. The blonde sighed as he felt the blood renew its flowing, unobstructed. "My favorite part of the movie was when Orihime started saying as Naruto spaced out, and just listened to the sounds of the area. The sounds of cars passing by, bits and pieces of conversations nearby, and lastly the sound of Orihime's voice." He smiled at the excited girl. "Hey Hime-chan, let's go see if Sasuke and Tatsuki are back." Orihime gasped as if she had forgotten about them and the tournament they had embarked on. She nodded and they began their short journey to where the dojo resided, which was about 20 minutes away. The entire way there they chatted about anything, mostly how the movie was. This is what Sasuke and Tatsuki came up upon. "Hey guys, you're looking at the #1 women's champion," Tatsuki said proudly as she bounded towards the duo. Orihime cheered and the two celebrated in their womanly ways, laughing and bouncing cheerfully. Naruto looked to Sasuke to see him with a bored visage. "Oh come on Sasuke, they couldn't have been that bad." The look the Uchiha gave him was confirming enough. It was a complete waste of time. You had to fight until your opponent was knocked out, and in my case they were short fights. They weren't entertaining at all. The blonde patted him on the back. "That's pretty sad. Now that I think about it, why did you even enter if you knew it was going to be like that?" Naruto didn't even know why he asked that question, because it was pretty much apparent what his reason was. "Well, I know, you can fight Carrot Top. After he felt our Ryatsu a week ago, he's been antsy around us." This got Sasuke's attention as the subject of last week came to mind. That reminds me, did Yorichi find a way to take us to the Soul Society? The blonde shook his head. The most she said was to chill. Naruto said, putting his head down, as that was the only thing she said for another question as well. I agree with her though, starting Monday is the last week of school. After that we can disappear with no questions asked. Sasuke nodded, as that was the bright side to this world. They get the entire summer off, until the next school year started. So what happened after the while I was gone? A grin split across Naruto's face. So yesterday was another weird day. There was this weird guy that had a spirit show, and he was doing an episode in Karakura town. Sasuke rolled his eyes and looked around. Well, of course it was here, how else would you see it? Sasuke asked mockingly as he noticed that the girls were nowhere to be found. Where'd the girls go? Naruto shrugged his shoulders and they began walking down the street. Now back to the story, Naruto said as he told the Uchiha about everything that occurred during the night show. How it was like a big thing nationwide and how mostly everyone loved it. Then he went on about how the host guy, Don Kananji, basically created a hollow from a bound spirit that was at the haunted hospital. That surprised Sasuke. He created a hollow? How the hell did he do that? He asked with a look of pure surprise on his face. Naruto shrugged as it hadn't been explained to him yet. I have no idea, but get this, Ichigo got jumped by a bunch of security guards because he was trying to stop the man. Naruto said, laughing before he finished the story about when they fought in the hospital and finally the hospital roof. I don't fully know the details because I was with Hime-chan, Naruto said as they arrived near a bookstore. Naruto stopped Sasuke from saying something by heading inside the bookstore. Hold up, I got to check my money situation, the blonde said, leaving Sasuke out on the streets. The Uchiha sighed as he noticed that they were at an adult bookstore and a picture of the orange book was in the window. Stupid idiot, bringing that smut to this dimension. That's not nice. Naruto-sama worked hard to publish Aika Aika Paradise, a female voice said behind Sasuke. The Uchiha looked behind him to see a pair of 12-year-olds. One was male, the other female. They looked exactly the same, sans the eyes. The female had red eyes while the male had orange eyes. That threw him for a loop, as that was uncanny colors for humans to have. You two aren't exactly human, are you? He asked slowly, after a couple of minutes of staring. The two shook their heads. The female was wearing a red shirt and a black skirt with a pair of black shoes and a pair of white knee-high socks. And the male was also wearing a red shirt and black shorts with black shoes. Hi, I'm Kizara, the girl said, smiling as her long crimson hair fell down her back with 3 ponytails. And I'm Kasuke, the boy said, showing a feral smile that revealed his enlarged canines. Sasuke looked at the duo, studying them for any hints. It came as a shocker when he noticed that they were kitsune. How the hell did the loser summon you two? Sasuke thought out loud. That's a conversation reserved for private surroundings, the blonde said, exiting the store with a briefcase in hand. Can you believe this is the tips I got from publishing the book? It seems perverts in this dimension are more open with their perverseness. They really love my sensei's work. He would have been a king here. Naruto said the last one softly as memories of his sensei flooded his mind. Sasuke resisted the urge to shove a second Chidori through the blonde's chest as he spaced out. Instead, he opted to just smack him in the back of the head. Focus, loser. Are you going to tell me how you were able to summon or not? The Avenger asked with a tick mark forming on his head. The blonde always knew a way to bring out his anger. Wait, geez, Naruto said, rubbing his head as he turned his head to look at the twins. Why are you guys so young? He asked before shaking his head. It doesn't matter. How was your mission? He said, grinning widely. The two saluted and stood at attention. It went off without a hitch, they said in unison. Wait, what mission? Sasuke asked, curious. Sorry, Sasuke, the less people to know about this, the better, the blonde said jokingly. Again, the Avenger smacked Naruto in the head. Alright, let's go home. I'll tell you there, I need to put this money up anyway, Naruto muttered, rubbing his head as he headed in the direction of their shared apartment. CD. About 10 minutes later, a large group of thugs surrounded the two. Hey you blondie, what do you got in that briefcase? One of the 12 thugs said loudly. Naruto turned his head to look at the one that talked. Seconds of silence passed before a look of remembrance flashed in the blonde's mind. Oh hey, I remember you, you're one of those weak-ass thugs from a month ago. How've you been doing? I see the doctors did a good job in healing you, Naruto said smugly as a viscous grin split his face. Sasuke had been looking at Naruto for an explanation when he noticed the grin. Oh, the loser's demonic bloodlust is leaking, Sasuke thought in alarm. What did you say? He said as he pulled out a pair of pocket knives. The blonde took a deep breath as he ran his free hand through his hair. You heard what I said. Fortunately for you, I don't really feel up to fight your weaklings right now. I'm kind of holding something important right now, Naruto said as he looked down at the twins. Hey, I know, how about you two? He asked the duo. I thought you would never ask, Kisuke said as his feral grin spread across his 12-year-old face. Kizaru was different in her acceptance. She simply nodded and softly smiled. The blonde above them noticed their nails sharpening for the battle to come. Don't kill them. Just beat them up. They nodded reluctantly before their claws shortened. Fine, which ones do you want, Kizaru? I'll take the 6 on the left, you take the 6 on the right, she replied. Naruto yawned, forcing the twins to start the beating. Seconds passed and each of them already dropped a thug. Not even a minute passed before the rest of the thugs dropped. After the last thug thudded against the ground, the twins appeared in front of him. That was too easy, Kisuke said, wiping his knuckles on his shorts, to remove some of the blood from when he broke one of the thug's nose. Naruto nodded as he began walking away. I know, that's why I didn't want to fight. It would serve no purpose, he said, hearing them follow him, with Sasuke grunting in agreement. CD. 10 minutes later they appeared at the apartment. Naruto went straight to the kitchen and began the process of making him a sandwich, while a clone took the briefcase to his room. Now that we're here, you two tell Sasuke about the mission. Kisuke smiled as he stood in front of Sasuke. This mission wasn't complex as you're thinking, it was pretty simple. All we did was prank the principal. We rigged his office, in different places, so that if he sets it off, he'll get splattered with paint of different colors. But first we had to get him out of the office, because when we got there he was in there doing some paperwork. So with a few well-designed illusions he was sent out of the office. I made him think his pants were on fire, and then he was suddenly covered in bird poop. So I'm guessing he went to the locker room to take a shower, and that's when we got to work, Kizaru said, jumping in. Sasuke looked at the two and then finally to Naruto, who had just taken a bite out of his completed sandwich. Are you serious? Pranks? I thought you would have stopped doing those, Sasuke said, sighing as he plopped onto the couch. Naruto smiled into his sandwich. What made you think I would stop pranking? He asked as silence followed for some odd minutes. Sasuke shook his head, rose to his feet and walked to his room, all without saying a word. The twins watched silently. They looked at each other and smiled. I think it's time for us to go, they said in unison before disappearing in a puff of smoke. The blonde looked at the puff of smoke and then to the closed door of his roommate. He wiped his mouth of the breadcrumbs and drank from a bottle of water. Wow, what was that all about? Naruto thought before he decided to train somewhere. He had to keep his skills sharp somehow. He went to his room and changed clothes. Now he wore gray pants with a gray, form-fitting, muscle shirt that showed his tattooed arms, and regular white shoes. He unsealed his unique sword, shined out of his room, to the roof of the apartment building. He broadened his senses and checked the surrounding area for possible training spots. This served as another factor as he was checking on where the most spiritual pressure was located, so he could be as far away as he could. He immediately noticed Ichigo's Ryatsu, which he didn't even have to concentrate for. Carrot Top's going to have problems if he doesn't learn how to conceal his power. Other signatures were very faint, but still above average. He noticed them to be Rukia Yuryu, who was the most reserved of classmates, Chad, Orihime, Tatsuki, Karen, and even Yuzu. The last two were small in actually power, but he knew they were still faintly aware. Strangely, he thought he would be able to sense Yorichi, but he wasn't sensing anything from her. He had to really concentrate, and noticed there were 2 unrecognizable signatures near the edge of town. Who are these people? I'll forego training for now and scout that location, he thought as he hopped from roof to roof all the way across town. Minutes passed before he landed on a roof directly looking over a shop in the middle of a dirt road. This is peculiar, Naruto thought slowly. He said that because in front of the shop were 2 preteens that were sweeping the road. Well, one was sweeping, the other was pretending his broom was a baseball bat. Jinta, Urahara-sama told us to sweep the road, the small timid girl said. She has black long hair styled in 2 ponytails. Her cheeks were marked with what seemed like a permanent blush. She wore a white shirt with a pink skirt with white sandals. She immediately reminded Naruto of Hinata with how softly she spoke. Don't tell me what to do, Ururu, Jinta said as he started grinding his knuckles against the girl's head. Jinta was a small boy with red hair. He wore a white shirt and blue shorts with blue and white shoes. The blonde watched for another minute before he sighed and rose to his feet. Suddenly he felt a strange aura surround the girl before she vanished. Huh, where'd she go? Naruto thought before he noticed she was suspended behind him preparing to kick his head off. The blonde yelped in surprise as he immediately substituted himself with a cinder block. He watched as time slowed, he regretted switching with a cinder block. But when he seen that she had kicked it to dust he gulped. She hadn't even landed before she dashed at Naruto, preparing a punch. The blonde blocked the punch with his open hand, before wrapping her little hand with his own. He grunted as the force from the punch sent a shockwave behind him. She's strong, he said as he threw her over him. He comically shook his hand to relieve the pain. Okay, let's continue, he said, not having to wait long as she again launched off an invisible surface and punched the building where he was a second ago. Okay, she's super strong, he said as he noticed the little boy from before behind him with a giant metallic bat. Time for the Jinta home run, he said, swinging the bat and connecting. Fortunately, he only hit a puff of smoke. What, more smoke? He said, landing on a destroyed piece of roof. Naruto appeared on the dirt road scratching his head. Can I ask why you two are attacking me? He said, and retrieved no reply from the girl or boy. Okay, no answer, he said, cracking his knuckles. He was surprised when a giant man appeared behind Yururu and Jinta and held them by the collar of their shirts. Apologies, stranger. I only just noticed you were being attacked, the giant man said. He had lightly tanned skin and cornrows in his hair. He also had a weird mustache that was connected to his sideburns. He wore a large blue apron over a tight white muscle shirt and regular blue pants. Say you're sorry and get back to work, he told the two. The blonde watched closely and noticed that the boy was sweating profusely, whilst the girl's eyes regained their shine and she started acting timid again. Weird, he thought before smiling at the tall man. Oh, it was my fault in the first place, Naruto said, chuckling. Seconds later his shoulders were being tightly gripped by the man, who was crying profusely. Oh, what a humble spirit you are. Okay guy, I mean mister, Naruto muttered as he tried to pry the man's hands off of him. You're breaking my bones, Naruto murmured as the man let go. Oh sorry, please come inside. Are you here for Urahara-sama? The man said, ushering the blonde into the shop. Who? Naruto muttered softly. The tall man must have heard because he cleared his throat. How rude of me, I hadn't even introduced myself. My name is Tezzai Tsukabshi. The two you just had the pleasure of meeting outside was Jinta and Yururu. Our boss's name. At that moment an opening door revealed a tall man. With the addition of being maybe an inch or two taller than the Uzumaki, he was leanly built. He had lazy gray eyes and his, nearly pale, blonde hair was a complete mess, even under that white and green striped hat. Bits of hair lined the man's chin, and Naruto also noticed that the hair strangely framed the man's face, from the regular position of framing strands to actually between his eyes. For in attire he was wearing a dark green shirt and pants, and over that was a large black coat that resembled his Kage cloak. For footwear, a pair of Geta clogs, not unlike his late sensei's. Lastly, he was carrying a cane, but showed no visible signs of being handicapped. But the weirdest thing about him, and Tezzai, was that he couldn't feel any kind of energy. The blonde didn't voice his thoughts. He thought it better to just pull in all the knowledge he knew about Soul Reapers, because it was obvious that was what this man was. He was just too different to be a human. Seconds passed, and he couldn't come up with anything similar to this. The man released a huge smile. Hello customer, my name is Kasuke Urahara, what can I do you for? I have lots of stuff here. How about candy? You look like somebody with a sweet tooth. Maybe reading will interest you. I have one of the best books ever published. It's an adult book, so don't tell your folks, he whispered to Naruto before quickly taking out a familiar orange book. The blonde had been wide-eyed with the sudden bombardment of questions, but with the book he couldn't stop a short chuckle from escaping his lips. That chuckle devolved into full-blown laughter. The blonde couldn't help himself. I'm sorry Kasuke-san, I'll have to decline the offer of the book. A look of pure comedic confusion appeared on Kasuke's face. What? Why not? It's the best adult book I've had the pleasure of reading in all my life, the pale blonde said, shoving the book in the face of the darker-colored blonde. The sudden attack to his face surprised Naruto, and he shielded said face with his hands. I'm declining because I wrote it, he flat out said, thankful that the assault stopped. He lowered his hands to see Kasuke staring at him with disbelief clear in his eyes. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Pleased to make your acquaintance, the blue-eyed blonde said, bowing slightly. Surprised silence permeated the area before a loud, because of the situation, clearing of the throat could be heard. The occupants looked down to see the black cat named Yorichi. I told you who he was, but you still found it surprising. The manly voice pierced through the pale blonde's ears. So that's where you've disappeared to Yorichi-chan, Naruto said with a smile as he watched the woman in cat form hop onto the nearest counter. I was wondering where had run off to, Naruto said, leaning against a rack that had an assortment of different genre of books. Yorichi stayed silent for a moment and busied herself with licking her paw. Sorry if worried you, but I was unaware that you would worry in the first place. Naruto scoffed. Who said anything about wondering? I just wanted to see you human form. That comment cost him a scratch that left him with 4 identical and bloody marks across his face. He yelped in pain and crashed to the floor, holding his face and rolling around screaming multiple apologies at the evil cat. Tezai rushed to the tan blonde with a medical kit. A minute of thrashing around, Tezai had managed to completely wrap the blonde's head in bandaging. With that, the thrashing grew in desperation as it was clear that Naruto couldn't breathe. Ah! Tezai yelled as Naruto went limp. He quickly tore the bandaging off and checked for a heartbeat. It was faint and returning to normal. At that point, Naruto rose and gasped for breath, the scratches on his face completely healed. What the hell was that for? Naruto said, coughing into his hand, rising to his feet in the process. I apologize for Tezai's behavior, Naruto-sama. He's a little eccentric. Kisuke finally spoke, bowing to Naruto. Please sit in here and we'll discuss the purpose of your visit to my fair shop, Kisuke said, turning and walking through the sliding door. Naruto stood there for a few seconds, pondering what just happened. Naruto stared at his back with a raised eyebrow. I might not know him, but I know he doesn't act like this. He considers you Kami now, because you wrote a smut novel that his perverted mind took to a liking, Yorichi said, hopping off the counter and walking to room. The blonde nodded as that seemed like the most logical explanation. Well, it could get worse or better or something, Naruto thought lazily as he walked into the room and sat Indian style. So words through the grapevine tells me that you would like to go to the Soul Society to test your skills in this new world you now find yourself in, the pale blonde said, surprising Naruto with his sudden bluntness. I may have a way to accomplish what you're looking for. Naruto studied what was told to him with analyzing thought. So you have a way? He asked slowly. I was led to believe that the only way there would be death. Kisuke nodded, in a sense, yes, that would be the only way. But you're saying there's another way? Naruto questioned again. Yes. There's another way. Now quit asking the same question and allow him to explain it, Yorichi hissed in annoyance. The whiskered blonde nonchalantly waved her off, which caused him another scratch, this time across his palm. Stop doing that, he yelped, holding his hand. Of course you know, nothing in life is free. Everything comes at a price. This information is no different, Kisuke said. Naruto mirthfully chuckled and clapped his hands. So what is it you want in return? Money, information about my abilities, or my history? Naruto said with a large smile splitting his face, for he knew the man didn't want any of those in return. A perverted grin dominated Kisuke's face. I want the next 5 installments of Ika Ika before they're released to the public, he said, giggling like a schoolgirl. Done, Naruto said, extending his hand for a shake, which Kisuke completed with overwhelming giddiness. Now before we begin this business, where's your companion Sasuke-san at? This concerns him as well, Kisuke said as his eyes lost their delight and became sharp and serious. To follow suit, Naruto lost the cheerfulness in his attitude as well. He nodded and made a sealless shadow clone to get Sasuke. He'll be here shortly, the shinobi said, closing his eyes to slip into a meditative state. Equals shinobi apartment equals. Sasuke grunted as his right eye twitched. He was staring at himself in the mirror with his Manjikyu activated. It was hard work, but during their stay there, he's been trying to master the use of Tsukimi. Having Itachi's eyes helped with the process, but it wasn't good enough. Itachi was so proficient with the technique, he could torture somebody for 3 days, while only seconds passed in the real world. With as much training as he had, he increased the time from 4 hours to 10 in his created world, while several minutes passed in the real world. It was frustrating, and thus he set out to fight his brother in his created world. He's been at it for about 2 hours in his world. CD. Sasuke panted in exhaustion as he sat against the trunk of a large tree. He's been fighting the apparition of his brother for the past 2 hours, and the older Uchiha had just knocked the wind out of him. Luckily, he was able to escape in time to gather himself and wait for a second wind to fill his lungs. Although, to be honest, this was about the 5th wind he's had to wait for. He knew his brother was strong, but this was ridiculous. I guess being a ghost-like creation has its advantages, the young Uchiha thought. This Itachi didn't have to worry about the disadvantages of the flesh, like exhaustion. Of course he could still be touched, It's just that he's not real. But other than super high stamina, it was still the same Itachi. But because of the high level of stamina, it was extremely hard to find a flaw in his fighting style. It's like he's in the prime of his prime, Sasuke thought as he felt the temperature rising. He vanished a second before the tree exploded in a shower of black fire and charred wooden shrapnel. We've been fighting for hours, Sasuke, and you're still ready to fight. I'm proud of you. It's too bad this is an illusion. Sasuke heard from all around him as a flock of ravens appeared